across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome back. It is the home of Common Sense, and thank you to Julia. She's back, of course, on Monday right here on Talk. So much to get through this afternoon. As you will be aware, Donald Trump has arrived at Chequers for talks with Sir Keir Starmer, day 2 of his state visit after leaving Windsor Castle and bidding farewell to the King. Trump turns his attention now to politics with a press conference looming this afternoon. You're going to hear it here live. This could be box office stuff. Get your popcorn at the ready. And we're asking, where is the UK's future? Is it with the United States, or is it, perish the thought, with the EU? More on that in a few moments. Also this afternoon, the first Channel migrant has been deported to France under Keir Starmer's one in, one out scheme. Yes, the Home Secretary Shabima Mahmood calls it a vital step in securing our borders, warning small boat arrivals will face removal. It's one bloke, and he's not even from a country that's on the big list of problems. It's a fella from India. This was probably a PhD student doing a bit of gentle rowing in the Channel, who found himself scuppered by the border system. We'll have more on that, and Keir Starmer plans to recognise Palestine as a state. Of course he does, aligning with 147 UN nations, but faces criticism from Israel's Netanyahu, who says it rewards Hamas. Starmer delayed the move to avoid clashing with Mr. Trump's UK visit. Everything you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news. There's going to be a lot of it this afternoon. 0344 499 1000. That press conference with Starmer and Trump will happen round about 2:30. Set your watches, set your alarms, and be ready for that. We'll cover the whole thing live right here on Talk. And the question, and there's many questions really from the last 24 hours. But let me just put it like this to you. Where do you sense our future is in terms of our natural allegiance, our natural alliance, our obvious trading partner? Is it with the United States, or is it with the EU? And I'm not asking that question because it's a little mischievous and we can all have a pop at Macron and, you know, the whole EU dream crumbling away. And we know that Starmer is quite wedded to the whole EU thing. But genuine question, where is the UK's future best served? Is it the United States? Is it the EU? 0344 499 1000. Drop us a voice note on that as well. Yesterday, we saw the most magnificent display of Britishness, a tightly choreographed day of pomp, ceremony and patriotism. There's no country in the world that can produce this level of national pride. Bands, horses, gold carriages, a king and a castle. It was pitch perfect in every way. And then, of course, the banquet. Yes, a banquet in a castle. I mean, for many countries, this stuff only exists in their history books. For us, it's how we still do it. And despite the wobbly moment where it could have all been scuppered, yes, when Ed Davey turned down the invite, it went actually as planned. It wasn't just the visuals, though, the white bow ties and the ball gowns. This had real meaning, a unique opportunity to reiterate and further seal the special relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States. Could there be any country or region on the planet that we are more at one with? Don't believe me? Have a listen to King Charles from that prestigious dinner last night. Here is what he had to say.
Therefore, as we celebrate this unparalleled partnership, allow me to propose a toast to President Trump and the First Lady, and to the health, prosperity and happiness of the people of the United States of America.
Beautifully said. And in response, Donald Trump said this.
The British Empire laid the foundations of law, liberty, free speech, and individual rights virtually everywhere the Union Jack has ever flown, including a place called America. You know that place very well, don't you? His Majesty spoke eloquently about the bond which inspired Sir Winston Churchill, and the bust is in the Oval Office right now, the beautiful bust of Winston Churchill, to coin the phrase special relationship. But seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry.
And everything there, and he said it. Union flag, by the way, Mr. President, but we'll let that slide. Foundations of law, liberty and free speech. He said it all within that, as did the King. Just an incredible scene. Now, I know it's a state banquet. I know they lay it on thick. I know they're meant to say this kind of stuff. He's never going to turn up and say this place is a bloody mess, is he? I mean, obviously they're going to congratulate each other. It's all about a mutual loving, but there is a genuine, serious side to this. And it isn't just about trade. We know that over the last couple of days, billions upon billions of dollars have been advanced or will be coming this way as a result of trade deal, mostly in the world of tech, but it's not just that. There are potential pharmaceutical elements to those trades and all manner of other industries that could have, to coin the phrase, a piece of the pie. It's all there to be had. It isn't just that. It is also, when I think of allegiances, when I think of the kind of country we want to be, the levels of identity that we need to achieve, and I think almost to a degree after the last 10 or 20 years, kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. Where is our kinship? Where do you sense we have most commonality? Who's our greatest partner? It would be the USA, right, over the EU. That doesn't mean we don't. The EU is a massive trading bloc. We'd be all royally scuppered if we didn't. Of course, no one ever said when they voted for Brexit they didn't want to trade with the EU. That was the whole point. Trade with it, not be run by it. Nothing wrong with that position. So yes, of course the EU is important, but in terms of where we feel familiar terrain, for you, is that the USA or is that the EU? Because I think Starmer ultimately would go, no, definitely the EU. 0344 499 1000. We'll open up the lines on that now. Where is the UK's future best served, USA or the EU? Let's get a word from Alex Dean, consultant and political commentator. Good afternoon to you, Alex.
I, Ian, completely agree with your premise.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because this one has thrown up. I've seen a few people, those that aren't very patriotic, I suppose you could describe it loosely, on TV in the last 24 hours saying, well, you know, what's this man doing here? You know, they're not really our greatest brother on the world stage. I'd say they probably still are.
Well, of course they are. I mean, I declare an interest because I work for an American listed business, but so do many other people. Every day in this country, 1 million Brits get up and work for an American business. In the United States, every day, 1 million people get up and work for a British business. Yeah. There is no two closer centres of economic activity than the financial centres of London and New York, far closer in economic terms than we are with any of the European exchanges. As you rightly say, we need the EU too, but if you're asking us to prioritise, plainly it should be with the country that literally speaks our language, that has such a wellspring of affection for us. Whatever people think of our decision to leave the EU, once we'd made that decision, President Trump tried his best in his first term to make a trade deal with us and make our lives easier. The European Union tried their best to make our lives harder. Yeah. So if you're looking to where your friends are and where you're most likely to see success, I'd say that.
And I think that's reasonable, isn't it? And it's just, you know, not just, I mean, the trading thing, the big announcements we've had are impressive. Of course, we have loads of other ties financially, economically already that are just kind of ongoing. But I guess it's a kind of, to me, it's almost a kind of spiritual thing, Alex. You know, it's where naturally you feel that commonality, where naturally you feel a kinship. And I would have to put, you know, the EU is a group of countries, and I love many of them. In fact, most of them, frankly, are all wonderful places to visit. Who doesn't like a bit of Paris or Madrid or whatever? Italy is fantastic. So many wonderful places. But in terms of where our kind of strategic alliances should be, I mean, you'd have to put the USA above the EU.
Correct. Look, I love Europe. I just see no need for us to be members of the European Union. But in terms of alliances, it's clear that we're far closer with the Americans than we are with our continental friends. And indeed, through the security apparatus, Five Eyes and so forth, we've never seen the security issues for our country's future through the lens of European, first and foremost, through European cooperation. It's always been with our closest allies, the Americans, the Australians, and so forth. There is something important about that. And just because you mentioned it in your introduction, I thought I'd say that is why it's particularly ridiculous that Ed Davey declined to go. I mean, as if he had somewhere more important to be than when the leader of the free world came to visit. If he doesn't like pomp and circumstance, he shouldn't have accepted the knighthood. If he doesn't think that looking after our country and representing our interests is important, he should be leader of a political party. I mean, I can only assume he was busy trying to bungee jump into a cup of jelly from the wings of a biplane or something. And the man has made himself a farce. And yesterday just really put the crowning moment on that for me.
Yeah, 100%. Let's look at this story. Government officials have confirmed the first migrant has been deported under the one-in, one-out deal. Hey, this follows the first 2 flights leaving empty, of course. Let's have a listen. A reminder what Tory leader Kemi Badenoch said on the deal.
This is exactly what I said would happen. Labour had a one-in, one-out deal with France. They failed to get anybody out, and we're still taking in more people from France. So we're still having net increase in immigration based on this deal. It is extraordinary that Labour are not able to deport one person. There was only one migrant on that flight. I think that that is extraordinary. It shows that they haven't got a clue. If they hadn't cancelled our Rwanda plan, they would be in a much better position, and they need to bring that plan back ASAP.
Kemi Badenoch speaking. Interesting, Alex, isn't it, that the fellow that they've deported today came from India. Now, that was, I think many people thought, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Because when they list the kind of countries where most people come from on that channel crossing, I think Albania at one point was top of the list, Iran initially was top of the list, but Eritrea is there, Syria is there. Very rarely, if ever, have I seen the word India written on that list. I've got a feeling this was just some poor PhD student who went for a row on the channel one day and got scuppered by the border people.
Ian, you're being very cynical.
Am I being cynical? And it turns out this fellow's going to be sent to France, and France are going to deport him to India.
Well, you're being very unfair because, of course, one person is 100% more than none. They have completely transformed their record from the beginning of the week when it was one in, none out. And so, they really have improved their position. But I have to say, I think Kemi Badenoch, who's being leader of the opposition, is probably the toughest job in British politics. I think she's right about the Rwanda plan. And I know it's goes to approvingly quote oneself, but I said at the time that we should stand by the Rwanda plan because whatever we put in place, the human rights monolith in this country would just try and tear that down as well. So we might as well stick with the plan we've got and so far down the pipe. And now, of course, it looks like some of our European friends are going to be deporting their unwanteds to, you guessed it, Rwanda. So we should have stuck with that plan, I think. But failing that, of course, it's the government of my country. I wish them well. I want this to succeed. But for heaven's sake, didn't anyone see this coming? Where the French stick by their side, so they're going to be sending people on the weekend, and we fail to send people to France. So it looks like it's going to be one out, many in by choice. We're going to be importing asylum seekers and refugee seeker people, at least in the short term, because of the government's failure to foresee this highly obviously likely move from human rights lawyers.
Listen, stay with us, Alex. We're going to take a short pause. Back with more stories coming next from Alex Dean right here on Talk.
I think more than one person has now suggested he cannot survive until the next election as Prime Minister. However, he's already exceeded my predictions, which was even before the election, that he wouldn't last beyond this year's spring local elections. He survived that long, and he probably will survive, actually, until next year's disastrous repeat of those elections, simply because of the structure of the Labour Party and its absence of any real method of getting rid of a serving leader.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one from Vinny, who says, I know Trump loved it, was slightly overwhelmed. He came for the king, not the idiot Starmer. God save the king and POTUS, says Vincent. Maybe they should change the national anthem as well. Dave says, Dave's in Kingston, Britain's only future is outside the EU. So that's with the US and, more importantly, trading with the Commonwealth instead of reparations. Well, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it, Dave? Thank you. And Reg says the only reason the Indian guy was sent back today is so that Starmer will have something to say at this press conference this afternoon, trying not to make himself look as stupid as he would have done if they hadn't sent someone away. But, of course, is it worse to say, you know, today we sent the first person? How many people, Mr Prime Minister? One bloke. And he wasn't even from a country that ordinarily we would have our eyes on. Funny times. Alex Dean is with us, consultant and political commentator. Let's move to this story, Alex. This, of course, fairly controversial, and we know this isn't going to happen until after Mr Trump has flown home. Keir Starmer set to formally recognise Palestine as a state after Trump concludes his visit. Let's remind ourselves of what this was, of when this was first announced earlier this year.
Always said that we will recognise a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
And it is September, and that's about to happen. I should just say, Alex, before you respond to this, that Starmer and Trump are talking at the moment. This is not the official press conference. This is kind of pre-press conference thing. Sitting, it looks like a TV studio from Eastern Europe in about 1978 for some reason. There's an assembled gathering there watching them speak. So this isn't the official press conference, but you can see there on your screens that it has some kind of vague announcement to it. The audio feed on that is pretty rubbish at the moment. We'll bring it to you when we can get some clarity. Let's go back then to Palestine, Alex. What are you making of this?
This is a reward for Hamas, and it's remarkable. The Prime Minister began his position by saying we would that would assist those who had committed the atrocities of October the 7th until all hostages have been returned. And then he said in a press conference last month, my position is completely unchanged, but we're going to recognise Palestine, which is a country that, if it's going to be run by anyone at the moment, would be run by an organisation that his own government recognises as a prescribed terrorist organisation.
Yeah.
It is madness. But Ian, it's also madness on wider terms, because for the last 100 years almost, we've had the Montevideo Convention on what constitutes a state. And it has 4 principles. A defined permanent population. Well, that's not possible presently, because many of the people who would say that they were Palestinian are in other countries, Jordan and so forth. The second is defined borders. Well, is Jerusalem, which they claim, in or out? Is it just at the Gaza Strip, or is it the West Bank? The third is a government. Well, the only organisation that might be that government is the one I've referred to, a terrorist group. Yeah. And the last is the ability to enter into formal communique with other countries. Well, that will only be true after the fact. So there are 4 criteria for being a state. It satisfies none of them. And this lawyer, our Prime Minister, is going to say he's going to recognise it as a state anyway.
I find it curious. His defence is often, well, there's 147 other countries that also recognise it. What do we make of that?
Well, this is someone who would normally say that peer pressure is something you shouldn't give into. Yeah. This is someone who would normally say that we don't believe in using the positions taken by others to decide what is right for ourselves. And indeed, if you look at the way that Israel has been treated by its neighbours, invaded repeatedly, if you look at the way that Israel is distinguished from its neighbours, a democracy in a region that, to put it at its mildest, is not burgeoning with democracies, and a country that is pluralistic and liberal, it treats gay people and women as equal citizens in a way that most of their neighbours profoundly do not. And if it becomes a state, Palestine would not. Many of the shibboleths that Labour hold dear will not be recognised in Palestine. In heaven's sake, try being transgender in a new recognised Palestinian state and see how you get on.
Yeah, spot on. This story, slightly disturbing this. I don't know what you make of this one. The American talk show host Jimmy Kimmel has been dropped indefinitely by the American news channel ABC over his divisive comments regarding the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let's have a listen.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
That seems to be the kind of key line that appears to have got him fired. I mean, this guy's one of the biggest deals, Alex, as I'm sure you know, in late-night American TV. Of course, he's treading on very delicate subject, but I've never seen one of those late-night talk shows not tread on delicate subjects. What do you make of this?
Yeah, look, on the one hand, he didn't do what a lot of people have done, which is celebrate the death, the murder of Charlie Kirk. And a lot of people losing their jobs now in the United States because they went out and chose to, on their social media, say it was a good thing and say it in far more blunt terms than I just described it. Well, if you think that somebody being shot for expressing their views is good, you can't be surprised if you lose your job for expressing yours. But that's 100%. Not actually what he did. What he did was say that the killer was a member of the Make America Great Again type movement. And it does seem that that was just completely untrue. Yep. Whether that means he should lose his job, another question.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to that curious, almost contradiction of America in some ways. Sort of the greatest advocate of free speech, and their amendment allows them to do all sorts of things. You know, we've talked about the American talk shows before. They can do material on ongoing court cases, which we can't do. Jay Leno, back in the days of the O.J. Simpson trial, it was either Leno or Letterman, had the dancing Itos, the judge. So a tribute to the judge at the time. I mean, you think, wow, I mean, this was about the death of a woman who was blown away and her partner in tragic circumstances, and they were making kind of light of the case. So this didn't, to me, seem particularly remarkable for an observational comedian.
I think what you may miss there, Ian, is the profound effect that this murder has had on culture in the United States. True. I know a lot of Americans and spend a lot of time there, and this really has struck to the heart of how many people see their country. This was a guy who spent his time going, whether you liked him or disliked him, agreed with him or disagreed with him, he had his debates in the public square. He didn't believe in using violence in that space. He went and disagreed with people. And other people, it seemed, were not just unwilling to listen to him, or not just unable to beat him in an argument. They disliked him so much, and they disliked his arguments so much that they killed him. Well, so temperatures are running very high, and I think Kimmel just chose a very bad time to go for some edgy comedy. After all, in the end, you sign a contract that says you won't bring your employer into disrepute, and you're employed at their pleasure. Well, I think we're seeing now their profound displeasure. Yeah,
and his show, of course, is owned by Disney, which have a certain brand to protect. Yeah. So I guess there is that. And let's also move to this story. Cops to stop police using dangerous facial recognition technology. Critics urge the UK police to stop facial recognition due to accuracy issues and potential misuse concerns. I mean, it's always going to be controversial, isn't it? Even just the name of it, facial recognition technology. There is something a bit Big Brother about this.
Yes, I dislike all of us being treated as suspects all the time. But moreover, I have a more fundamental concern, which is that you should pass the legislation, having had the debate in Parliament, preferably having put it in a manifesto, to have a big change in law like this, rather than doing what this government is doing, which is what governments so often do. Introduce the technology without having passed the law, and then retrospectively going back and saying, now justify it after the fact, after having done it. Be upfront with the British public. If this is how you think we should police, put it in your manifesto, debate it in Parliament, get a majority in Parliament, pass the law so that we can see it's been done properly. Don't do it backwards.
It seems absolutely right. I mean, there's nothing I could really argue against on that. And I guess all I should add to it, if I can get that out in one sentence, Alex, all that I would add to that would be we are going to see more of this. Whether we like it or not, this is going to be, the future, like garlic bread was once.
This isn't some small control trial they're doing. They're rolling this out in 7 major centres now, and it's coming to a high street near you soon. If you've got a concern about it, you should tell your Member of Parliament, who have frankly been rather omitted from this process. And when the debate comes, our representatives in Parliament should have every awareness and understanding of how concerned people are, rather than thinking, well, we did the trial without passing the law, no one seemed to mind, so we might as well wave it through.
Yeah. Spot on. Listen, Alex, always great to have you on. Thank you, Alex Dean, consultant and political commentator with us on the programme. We are going to pick up as well and continue on that question of the special relationship. The Europe editor from the Sunday Times will join us. Also, Brian Monteith, former Brexit Party MEP, and Kevin Meir, who's the former Labour advisor. Looking forward to speaking to all of them. Importantly, your comments on the way as well. 0344 499 1000. Special relationship. Where are we most, not just at home with in terms of trade? I mean, obviously you look to wherever your greatest trading partner. Who is our greatest trading partner? USA or EU? There's always a little bit of controversy over which one it is. But it's a bit more than that, isn't it? It's about our kind of spiritual sense of kinship. It's about commonality. It's where you feel more at home, where you think, yeah, this is the place that I think shares everything from most of our values and ideas and all that follows from them. And as Donald Trump said in his speech, we are the country, the foundations of law, liberty and free speech. I think it's said best in that statement. 0344 499 1000, 1:30. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
One in from Scott. Today's question referenced the one in, one out. How much have the UK paid for him to leave? My guess is too much. I think there is something in that, isn't there? If there's an Indian deal, it's a whole separate thing. I don't know. We'll get the details soon. But good point, though, Scott. This one from Barry. At the request of France, we deport an Indian because conveniently they have a return agreement with India. It does seem very strange. Of all the different nationalities you normally see on the kind of Home Office list of people that may be coming into the country illegally, you never see India really on that list. You see Albania, you see Iran, you see Eritrea, you see Syria, you see Afghanistan. You don't tend to see India. We'll come back to that. We're also looking about that special relationship. Where is our future best served? Would that be within the EU? We used to be there, of course, not half an hour ago. We were all part of the whole setup. Or is it the USA? When you hear those speeches yesterday, the King and Donald Trump talking, you do kind of think to yourself, well, I don't know, maybe that's really where the future is. That's where you feel more kinship, as it were. Mr. Trump has now landed, of course, at Chequers, Keir Starmer's official residence, after praising the King as a great gentleman and calling his state visit a high honour, with a joint press conference looming. They've just been speaking at a business conference separate to the press conference. Will Britain's future be best served with the US or the EU? Let's speak with Peter Conradi firstly, Europe editor at the Sunday Times. Afternoon to you, Peter. It's not an entirely new question, of course, and, you know, we've had this lengthy relationship with the United States, and we always kind of, I suppose, historically think of this kind of, in more recent history, or relatively, the Thatcher-Reagan thing, sealing it very much. We speak the same language, etc. But then, of course, there's the EU, which is just on our doorstep, and we were, for decades, part of it. Where is the future for this country, do you sense?
I think the future is probably, as it's always been, stuck between the two, really, and trying to get the best out of both worlds and hoping not to be left with the worst out of both worlds. I mean, I suppose I was going to quote Lord Palmerston, the 19th century Prime Minister. Who
I thought you were going to say Lord Mandelson then for some horrific moment.
Less about him the better.
Indeed. Sorry, do continue, Peter.
Britain has no eternal allies and we have no perpetual enemies. Our interests are eternal and perpetual. So, I mean, in a sense, I suppose we in Britain have got to take what we can from the Americans and take what we can from Europe and the Europeans, but bear in mind that both of them are not going to do us any favours, and their interests are also eternal and perpetual in this same context.
That's very true. And Mr. Trump, of course, never hides that fact. You know, he's all about America, and that's clearly his job, by the way. He shouldn't be criticised for doing that. But I suppose when it comes to special relationships, there's the obvious trade stuff, and we all understand that, and there's some encouraging multi-billion-pound announcements over the last few days, plus what's already in the works, and of course those relationships economically and otherwise that we've had for many years. But we do also have those with the EU, don't we? I mean, there's quite a lot of wonga that goes between the two regions.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of wonga, as you put it, going both ways, just because of geographical proximity. You know, we are so close to Europe. We've always done, even before we were in the common market we did an awful lot of our trade with Europe because it's just a massive market right on our doorstep, and we're going to continue trading with them. But as we found with Brexit, or the aftermath of Brexit and the negotiations, that the Europeans strike a very, very hard deal, as they did with us. They want certain things with us. I mean, under Keir Starmer, we're obviously edging to a closer, more amicable relationship with, but I mean, particularly with France, where I'm based, but with the EU as a whole. But the bottom line of it is that they want things for us. I mean, at the moment, one of their demands remains freedom of movement for young Europeans to come to Britain, to study, to work, to do that kind of thing. And the way the EU works is to tie together completely unrelated subjects. So, very complicated discussions about kind of veterinary standards and on letting in food products and so on without controls can be tied in with something apparently completely different, like, we want more German students to be able to come to Britain.
Yeah. What is the biggest block for trading? I mean, is there a figure on that? I know kind of people, it does sort of divide the room a little bit. Is it the EU or the United States? Because as you rightly say, they're both huge, they're both important, they're both intrinsic within our kind of economic plans and vice versa. But is there a kind of categoric number in terms of which one is best for us?
I should have the numbers in front of me, and I don't.
No, I wasn't expecting. I mean, I put you slightly on the spot there, Peter. But you'll be aware that there is this sort of debate. Well, collectively, it might be the EU, and but then the EU also, have a different way of counting trade or something like that.
Exactly. I suppose probably and speaking a bit off the top of my head, but I think it probably boils down to physical goods on the one hand and services on the other. So with physical goods, geographical proximity, just 12 miles or so across the channel, is an important factor. You're not going to ship relatively low value products. Not that I'm not sure we make many of those anymore, but around the world. Whereas it comes to services, sort of financial services, the other kind of services that Britain is particularly good at, which we tend to have a surplus in, then distance is no object. So America's just as good a trading partner as the Europeans. But I think a point you made at the beginning is crucial. The cultural thing, the fact that we all speak the same language. You can't underestimate the importance of that, I think, just in ties the way we see them and also the way they see us, as Trump put across in his speech yesterday evening at Windsor.
Yeah, indeed. Peter, thank you for your time, sir. Really great to have you on. Peter Conradi, Europe editor for the Sunday Times. Thank you to him. Let's move to Brian Monteith, former Brexit Party MEP. Afternoon to you, Brian. I can imagine where your allegiances are, probably not with the EU, bearing in mind you voted and campaigned and worked there in order to leg it from that, crazy bureaucratic system that they called an EU Parliament, etc. Nonetheless, you never said, I never said, we want to stop trading with the EU. Of course we do. That was almost the point, wasn't it? Trade with them, not be run by them. So yeah, we want to trade, but where do you sense our prime allegiances are? With the United States or with the EU in terms of trade and the like?
Well, not only am I Scottish, I'm British, and I'm European. And I stayed in France for some 11 years whilst working as an international consultant. So I don't easily fall into I'm much against Europe as such. I believe in British sovereignty, just as Trump believes in US sovereignty. And where I see our interests lying is in deciding what's best for Britain. And that means negotiating good deals with countries around the world and getting the best out of them. And if I may just answer a question you put earlier, the largest market is in fact the United States. It used to be the EU when we were in it. But once we left, it lost our GDP and the US became the largest market. But more importantly, what we can see over time, certainly in the last couple of decades, is how far the United States has pulled away from the EU in its prosperity, in its growth. If we look at average purchasing power, it's 100 for the EU in 22. It's 153 per person for the United States. And for Britain, it's just 106. If there's a message there, it is that we need to look at what the US does in its domestic economic policy and replicate the best parts of it.
Yeah. And when the other side of this question, I suppose, in terms of where is our future, the issue about where we kind of feel more comfortable, where we find commonality, etc. And notwithstanding the fact that, and you will know better than me on this, Brian, Europe is full of the most wonderful cities and countries and cultures, and there's all sorts going on. But are we closer culturally and otherwise to that than we are to the United States?
I think there's a certain aspect of the interplay that we've enjoyed culturally with other European provinces, countries, regions, because the Europe we see today is not the same as the Europe in previous centuries. It's constantly moved and evolved, and flows of people have from the European continent have influenced us as they settled in Britain, as we saw them compose music for our royal families and so on.
Sure.
So that is there, and it cannot be denied, and it can be further developed. But then, having had the United States decide, as it did by some 6 votes in its early days, to adopt the English language, we have a very strong bond with the United States, and I think we look to that culturally for ideas. And certainly for our service industries, our creative industries, it's a huge market. And that's where the future for us lies, not in heavy metal working and manufacturing. In fact, if you look at JCB, one of our great exports, they, of course, now have factories in the US. That's the type of British manufacturing we need to be putting it out there into other countries, not just in Britain.
Yeah, spot on. Brian, appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much indeed. He is Brian Monteith, former Brexit Party MEP. Where do you feel instinctively as a Brit listening to this? You look over there and there's Donald Trump and the United States and all that they stand for. I'm not just talking about Trump. I mean, look at the country. We can obviously talk about the language, that's a given. But everything else that goes with it, culture, commonality, friendships, etc. Where do you sense instinctively you would plant your flag of allegiance? Would it be in the United States or would it be in the EU? 0344 499 1000. Let's speak with Kevin Marr, former Labour advisor. Afternoon to you, Kev. I mean, I might take a guess at where you would go with that question, but tell us anyway. Where should we be sending the Christmas cards first? Over the Channel or over the Atlantic?
At the risk of making this sound like a cop-out, we need to do both, really. I mean, culturally, yes. Look, I watch as much American TV and American films as anybody else does, and culturally, there's a great connection there, which is vivid and strong and deep-rooted. And there's lots of people in America with heritage in Europe and, of course, in Britain as well, and Ireland particularly as well. So it feels like a place that we can always do business with. It feels like a place that is always home. But, I mean, just to pick up really the point Brian was mentioning a few minutes ago, the American economy and the American standard of living is very different than what we're used to. I mean, I feel very sorry often for blue-collar working-class Americans who get virtually no holiday leave. 2 weeks is the usual run for even people doing rather well. Cost of living is pretty high. The healthcare situation is abominable and all the rest of it. I'm not quite sure if you took your average Brit and sort of said, here you go, you have to take America lock, stock and barrel, that they would actually like the American social model as much as they like the British social model, which is far closer to the European model. So whatever rows we have with the French or the Spanish or our European neighbours, I mean, they know how to do their grub. I think it's fair to say, and I think if it was a toss-up between taking US chlorinated chicken or French cuisine or Italian food or Spanish food, I think most people would probably jump into the European category. So yes, we have our rows and we rub up occasionally with the Europeans, as we have done for hundreds of years. That's not unexpected. But I think when the chips are down, our social model is much closer to Europe, and in fact, I think most people would think, well, if we could have as many holidays as the French do or the Spanish do, we'd probably be even better off.
So maybe that could be true. I should add, I did once have a manky plate of mussels in Marseille, so they don't always get it right. In terms of the future with this government, there's always lots of from your party, lots of speculation that Keir Starmer wants to gradually take us back into the EU. The only thing I would say in his defence, a lot of the stuff that he's working on, Rishi Sunak would have been working on as well had he won the election. A lot of this stuff was going to be happening. The sort of young people's right of passage to travel, that was always on the agenda. But instinctively, we know that Keir Starmer did agitate and advocate for, even a second referendum to remain in the EU. Do you think, and as objectively as you can, Kevin, I know that's very hard for a lefty, but give it a go. Do you think it's possible that Keir Starmer will take us deeper than perhaps many people desire?
I don't think it's on the agenda anytime soon at all. I think who knows down the road. Our economy is still very intertwined with the European Union. We're in a bit of a funk. The European Union's in a bit of an economic funk as well. Better days will lie ahead, and who knows at that point how we'll feel down the road at that point. But I think Keir Starmer's objective today and objective over the next few years is to keep the Trump administration, keep the US engaged in Europe and engaged in the world. And I think to be fair to Keir Starmer, he's having some success in doing that. He seems to be well regarded both by Donald Trump and other key European and NATO allies as well. He's trying to keep Trump in the sphere of the coalition of the willing, as it's become known, that we're going to have to try and hold the line with Ukraine because of fears of Russian expansionism. Beyond that, this is an incredible moment in global history. We've not seen anything like this since the Second World War. All kinds of forces are rampant around the world. The US has got its own kind of headaches in its Pacific backyard, where it's worried about Chinese expansionism and a potential invasion of Taiwan as early as 2027, and there's lots of wargaming that's been going on in the Pacific in recent days over there as well. So this is an incredible moment where Britain has an opportunity to fulfill a role that it's played really for 70 years and played it very well, which is to act as a bridge between Europe and the United States. And we can see that, I think, in full flight over the last 24 hours, with the royal family seemingly playing a blinder in courting the Trumps, and Keir Starmer getting down to some serious negotiations, which seems to have delivered a huge US investment package into the UK. So that relationship is absolutely essential. Britain playing the role of the bridge between the old world and the new world, as it would be, between America and Europe. And at the moment, he seems to be doing a pretty decent job, I think.
We will watch with interest what that press conference brings a little later. Hope you got your popcorn ready, Kevin. Lovely to have you on with us. Kevin Marr, former Labour advisor. Great. I don't think I've ever spoken to Kevin before. What a lovely man as well, and that's his perspective on it. He might be, a Labour man, but I thought he was fairly objective on things. Thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. We are covering that press conference in around about probably about half an hour, 40 minutes. We'll bring it to you live right here on Talk. We're going to go to your calls in just a second. Don't go away. Steve in Leeds. Find out what Steve has to say. Where is the UK's future, the USA or the EU? In fact, Donald Trump has made one comment at a business meeting about half an hour ago at Chequers. He said the US and the UK have an unbreakable bond. I mean, you want a definition of a platitude? It's right there. An unbreakable bond. Yeah, which is great. But the press conference might be a little more revealing. Find out later. Back to you on the calls coming next.
know from endless examples that women are often persuaded, cajoled into staying in abusive, physically, sexually abusive relationships by these courts. We know that they lose the custody of their children when the children reach a certain age. We know that they're not given the same financial standing and rights to inheritance. It really is an absolute regime that has no place in this country of ours.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. We're on the phones in just a second. Let's get a voice note first. We're asking that question, where is the UK's future best served, the USA or the EU? Here's Stuart.
It's USA, America, every day at week and twice on Sundays. The EU don't even like us. I mean, I don't like them either, but they don't even like us. They'd screw us over at the drop of an hat. America, every day at week.
America, every day of the week. Yeah, kind of with you on that one, Stuart. Steve's in Leeds. What have you got for us, Steve? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. I was saying to your the lady on the phone, when I was young when we joined the EEC, yeah, and when we joined the EEC, we had a trade surplus with Europe, a massive trade surplus. 40 years later, we've got a massive trade deficit, and we've seen the destruction of our industry. But my second point is cultural. When I was young and went to school, we had feet and inches, pounds and ounces, and miles and feet. Yeah. Now we've got kilometres per hour, we've got millimetres and metres, yeah, we've got litres. Europe has tried to change our culture as a country. The Americans have never tried to say that. The Americans have never said, we'll trade with you as long as you start speaking American and start using our mileage rules and our feet and inches. Europe was an exercise in changing us to become an homogenised European country with a conjoined army. They don't regard Britain as an independent, free-thinking country. They don't regard any country in Europe as that. It's all about making us European, accepting their rules. America doesn't do that. They have the same language as us. They have their own laws. They don't insist that we adopt their laws like the EEC did with the European Court. Look, if that's your laws in Britain...
Yeah, but they didn't insist we... I mean, the argument goes, Steve, they didn't insist we take their laws. Their laws were our laws. They're all our laws, if that makes sense.
Well, they have and they aren't they?
Because we're part of it. So if we're part of it, we're all taking the laws. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't, does it? Because the Americans have a constitution, yeah? Now, they didn't insist that we had to sign up to their constitution to work with America, but Europe insisted that we signed up to their laws and their regulations and told us, if you don't, you can't trade with us, you can't deal with us. Yeah, that's the difference. The Americans have never asked us to change who we are.
They haven't, but of course we weren't part of that allegiance, where we were part of the EU. In fact, one of the biggest parts.
We joined the EU as a trading bloc.
Agreed. No, I agree with you, but I'm just giving you the argument that comes back to you, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's the wrong argument, because if we join America now as a trading bloc, and loads of countries have over the decades, America never tried to change that agreement into something political. Europe did, deliberately.
Yeah, no, went literally a common market. The clue was in the word market, and the common bit said, well, anyone that's in it. But of course, it then went to become something completely different. But of course, as we now discover, Steve, the sort of original Franco-German architects of the EU always had this in mind, didn't they? A United States of Europe. That's what they were looking for.
It did. So America and Europe never had our best interests at heart. They look after themselves, obviously, because they want the trade. But America is open about that.
Yeah.
It says, look, we're here for America. We want to do the best for America. If you can help us, if you can do a trade deal that benefits us and benefits you, all well and good.
100%.
But that's all it is with America, is trade. With Europe, there's this hidden agenda of we want to change your country.
We should say it's what it is with the rest of the world as well. We're not part of, we deal with Australia, we deal with India. We don't join any specific sort of geopolitical group to make it happen. Listen, great call, Steve. Thank you very much for starting us off. Tarquin, stay where you are. Don't go away, because I want to give you plenty of time to get your comments in as well. Let's get another voice note, though, from Sean.
Afternoon, Ian. I think if we politically align, say, with the EU, you have to look at what's coming, and we know what's coming. It's just going to be more net zero, it'll be more tax rises, there'll be more immigration, digital IDs. I mean, the EU loves this stuff, don't they? And so do the Labour government. So as long as somebody in Europe tells Keir Starmer what to do, then he'll do it, because he loves that too. He loves being told what to do.
Do you know, that's such a good point. Thank you, Sean, for that, mate. That's such a good point. The EU, the whole kind of binding philosophy of the EU is a kind of globalist approach, and I don't say that as like a pejorative. That's how some people want to roll in the world. A global approach is better. So they love all that digital stuff, the collectivist idea that we're all database and sing from a similar hymn sheet, and not as a conspiracy. They just believe that that's the best way that should all run. America, certainly under this administration, don't believe that. I mean, there'll be some of it, but they don't fundamentally believe that. And I think in that respect, that would be certainly an ideology I'd be more comfortable with than the one across the channel. 0344 499 1000. More coming from you in a couple of moments' time. Right now, let's get the news at 2 o'clock.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
As we speak, we are awaiting, of course, the big press conference from Donald Trump and Keir Starmer live from Chequers. We'll bring you that detail. We know that they've signed the technology prosperity deal, Trump hailing this as an unbreakable bond between the UK and the US, promising AI dominance. The deal secures 150 billion quid in US investment, creating 7,600 jobs in the UK, with a press conference, of course, as I mentioned, on its way in around about 20-30 minutes time. And there'll be the telling bit, of course, is going to be the questions with the media afterwards. Also this afternoon, the first Channel migrant has been migrant singular has been deported from France to France under Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out policy. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood called it a vital step in securing borders, warning small boat arrivals will face removal. Well, they don't really face removal. That's been the problem. And as you've been hearing, Keir Starmer is set to recognise Palestine as a state, aligning with 147 other countries. He does face criticism from Israel's Netanyahu, of course, who say it rewards Hamas. And as you will have spotted, Starmer will announce this on Sunday, I believe it is, delaying it until after Trump's visit. But I'm pretty sure that might come up as a question this afternoon as well. We'll have details on the way. The number to get in touch, 0344 499 1000. We are, of course, asking, very simply, where is the UK's future best served, the USA or the EU? Let's just first get a word, though, on what has been happening in the world of immigration, because there's a couple of stories to get into here. And it is that government sources have revealed that the first migrant has been returned to France. This was an Indian man. And that's kind of relevant to the story for a lot of reasons. Under France's agreement, will probably most likely be sent back to India. So we've sent this man to France, and then France are going to send him to India. And I've never seen India on the list of the people of interest in terms of numbers of people coming to this country. That maybe there's an explanation for this. Meanwhile, and another story that should, drive you mad doesn't really cover it. This would be absolutely pull your hair out territory. An Egyptian rapist who was jailed for 8.5 years last November was found guilty of being part of a bomb-making group in Egypt, where he was given a 7-year jail sentence. We are asking the question, quite obviously, who are we letting into this country? He was also given bail at some curious point and stayed in the Hilton Hotel while he was awaiting trial. Let's speak with Westminster City Councillor for Reform UK. Layla Cunningham is back with us. Layla, good afternoon to you. Let's just start with this man and the 8.5-year sentence for raping a woman in Hyde Park, November. Found guilty in his absence of being part of a bomb-making cell in Egypt. Given a 7-year sentence in 2015. The list of it's so disturbing. This does, in fairness, predate Keir Starmer. This happened in 2015. But there was a period of time when he was on bail, staying at the Hilton Hotel, for goodness sake.
Well, that's where we place illegal migrants. We place them in 4-star hotels. But, Ian, this is just... So Labour and Conservatives, let's just get the story straight, have imported foreign terrorists and rapists and placed them in our neighbourhoods. Men who would never make it through Heathrow. Convicted terrorists, but they're rewarded if they come through the back door. My husband's American. He's got to pay thousands of pounds to get a visa. He can't access public services for 5 years. Yet if he came on a boat, he'd have free accommodation and full access to and I don't know if it's full access, but access to the NHS. Ian, we have terrorists that have been come into our country. That is a huge national security. If this happened after 2001, September 11th, governments would fall for this. And I don't see, we need answers. How many terrorists have entered the country? Where are they staying? Does the government even know? Are they keeping tracks? And what are they doing to mitigate the risk?
And we really don't know. It's not an exaggeration. It's not a right-wing trope. We genuinely do not know who these people are.
No idea. But Ian, any government who was serious about keeping us safe would take that unknown that you and I just discussed, seriously when placing them. You would place them in detention centers where they're not allowed to roam free. But these guys are placed in towns and villages and they're allowed to roam our streets free. It is, to be honest, it's a real dereliction of duty. I mean, their first duty is to keep us safe, and both parties have failed.
Yeah.
And this, for me, is one of the most serious issues facing our country now that we know that we have terrorists that have been let in. I mean, it's maddening. And we're not going to get answers because they don't even care.
And of course, it defies, we know it defies the laws of, basic logic and common sense. But, when you're putting somebody with this kind of background, when they get bail for an offence, and you think, how on earth would this, what in the system could possibly allow this to happen?
I don't know, Ian, but the system, as you speak of, it has to change. The system has failed to protect us. Yeah. The system is harming us, and I don't, it is shocking. It left me speechless because not only am I worried for my daughters and myself of being raped by one of them. I live not far from Hyde Park, but now I'm worried. How many can Labour MPs and the government look me in the face and say, we have no more terrorists that we've let in? Of course not. I want to know what they're doing to track them down and mitigate the risk, because they haven't spoken about this at all. In fact, Ian, I was called hard right for calling this out by a Labour commentator. Yeah. I was called far right by an ex-Labour minister for calling this out. People on the march who are marching for this reason were called extreme and far right and a danger to this country.
How does, I know I'm trying to kind of find logic in illogical minds, but you might think whether even somebody on the left who, of course they might fundamentally disagree with you on a whole series of things. Something like this, you would think, surely we can all agree this is either bonkers at best or incredibly, potentially lethally dangerous at worst. Everyone can see that, surely, regardless of their political allegiance.
You would think, but as I said, I was called hard right, and when I said why, he said, well, because you want people to protest in front of these hotels where we place asylum seekers, he calls them. I call them illegal migrants. Yeah. He said, these are their homes. And I said, it's not their homes. It's taxpayer-funded hotels. It is so reckless of the government what they're doing to our country. And I want answers, and I know the public want answers. And Ian, what I really fear is that we're not going to get answers.
Yeah. That is the fear, isn't it?
Yeah, it's no longer an immigration issue right now. This is an issue of national security. Why would any terrorist attempt to come via Heathrow or Gatwick when they can just rock up on a boat and be let in?
It's exactly the route you would take, isn't it? I mean, you wouldn't give it a go any other way.
Because you know why? Because it's a guaranteed route.
Yeah.
You're guaranteed entry. That's the mad thing.
Without having any of your papers checked, because you don't have any papers, you could be anyone.
Say a sob story. And you know what's worse? Yeah. I read in the Daily Mail that the Home Office knew of his history, some of it, and delayed processing his asylum application for 17 months. And you know why? Because the Muslim Brotherhood, incredibly, is not a prescribed terrorist group in this country.
Yeah.
That's how come he could claim asylum. And in any... I don't know. In most countries it is. I don't know.
Utterly bizarre, isn't it? Let's just look at this story as well, Layla, while you're with us. Another story in the long list of things that are a little bit extraordinary. The first migrant deported to France under the one-in, one-out deal. Migrant as in singular. I thought the standout part of this story was that he was from India. That in itself is interesting because India very rarely appears on that big old list of countries where people tend to come from. We see Afghanistan, we see Iran, we see Albania, we see Eritrea. We don't really see India on that list, but this lone character apparently was a wrong-un in terms of the fact hadn't committed any other crime other than he shouldn't have been here. Sent back to France, and then France sent him back to Germany. It doesn't feel like this is kind of like this bloke's on the same list as all the others for some reason.
No, well, because the thing is, what people don't realise is that France gets a veto on who we send back to them. So if they don't like that, if that person is too troublesome, put it that way, they're not going to take him. So this person was probably amenable. He said, if you pay for my trip back to India, I'm happy to go back. We don't get a veto, Ian, under this so-called deal. No, and Labour's parading it as a win, when in reality, it's actually an embarrassment.
It is an embarrassment, and of course...
It's surrender to France.
Yeah.
It's not a deterrent, it's an advertisement. It literally tells migrants, you know what, there's about 98% chance you're not going to get on the flight back to France.
And also, France, in terms of the mathematics, so 1 in, 1 out, I mean, it's none in for France, because they're going to deport this guy elsewhere anyway. So, but we will have a French migrant come back as a result, and possibly one of their dependents as well, or maybe more than one. So France have lost maybe 2, possibly 3 or more migrants to us. We've gained more. They are minus, we are positive.
And I bet you they wouldn't take this Muslim Brotherhood terrorist back, or anyone that they seem too troublesome.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, who would sign a deal where we don't get a veto on who's sent back? Only they do.
It's a bit weird. You can almost see this deal sort of going by the wayside at some point when we realise we've got to the end of the year and, you know, 6 people have been sent back. Not really the spirit of a controlled, serious immigration policy, is it?
It's not a deterrent. It's a farce.
Yeah.
And we all know that, you know, the ECHR are legal handcuffs, and they'll block deportations on vague claims such as, I don't know, destitution or like modern slavery, like someone else used. And it won't end until we unshackle ourselves from that. But we know Keir Starmer's a human rights activist, he was, and a lawyer, and he'll never do it.
He will never do it, and it's not, I say this every day, Layla, it's not in his DNA to even care, frankly, and that's the problem. Layla, great to have you on again. That's Layla Cunningham, Reform UK councillor at Westminster City Council. I think she sits as a fairly lone voice over there on Westminster City Council. To your calls then, back to where we began. We'll take some calls on that story as well. 0344 499 1000. I mean, the Indian guy getting deported, it's kind of laughable. You know, it's almost beyond parody of what they've clearly done here. Because this isn't, I don't sense this is strictly the same criteria of what we've been talking about in terms of bods coming over on a boat, etc. Tarquin down in London. Back to that question, Tarquin, about where our allegiances are, the USA or the EU. What are you making of this afternoon?
Yeah, well, just one thing. Layla Cunningham, what a brilliant woman. Absolutely amazing.
Fabulous.
I wish we had 650 of those ladies in our parliament. We'd be in a lot better place if we had a load of her. In terms of course, I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer for with half a brain. It's the US all the way, and I mean, I could be on this call for half an hour. You haven't got that long, but I mean, it goes all the way back to when the Mayflower left Devon and shot off in 1620. We have English common law in. So in other words, a basic Judeo-Christian belief system is one and the same. Not that it cannot be the same said in Europe. That has some old Roman bloody Charlemagne type of Roman corpus juris. No common law in Europe at all. Then they give a frying about our old Anglo-Saxon history of where we go back 1,000 years, where an Englishman's home in his castle doctrine, all that good stuff about being able to protect yourself, and the fact that they removed our right to bear arms, which we sort of have generally, but they've licensed it out of existence. So we need a new First Amendment codified, because we haven't got that clearly, and we need people like J.D. Vance, Donald Trump et al. To actually say, hey, this is what free speech should be like. Why are you people doing it? It's because we've been robbed, Ian.
Yeah. Do you think we can trace this back to the EU, some of our problems?
Oh, bloody hell. Crikey. And of course, it's the Quislings that signed us in, like Ted Heath and all these other Quislings. They were the people that signed away our sovereignty, got us in there in the first place. They should have been done for treason at the time, but of course, a bit late for most of them. So, yeah, of course, it's the whole thing is just a complete SH1T show. We should never have been past, but we only ever wanted to trade with it. And as sort of your very sensible, clever contributors of earlier said, that's the point. They wanted to have this political alignment in order to get this. What a load of old...
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny. The Ted Heath line was always, because he really was, their kind of early doors.
Piece of work.
His line was that, this is a guy that met some of the people that worked with Adolf Hitler. So, his point was, look, we must never let this happen again. What happened must never happen again. And the only way we're going to do that is by, a coming together of collective countries. Now, when you put it like that, you go, well, that's quite a good idea, really, isn't it? Last time that happened, we lost 6 million people in concentration camps, and a madman nearly took over Western Europe. But of course, you know, the real sense is that there was much more to it, even back then. And you look at Giscard d'Estaing, these sort of, you know, huge characters on the French and in the German scene as well at the time. You know, these people want what we've got today is exactly what they wanted back then.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right, Ian. And of course, what their plan was to regionalise England so that England as a country doesn't exist. That's what they'd love, to split us off into a bit of Wessex, a bit of East Midlands, England per se. That's why we never got a parliament. Only Wales got the Assembly, Scotland and England never got anything. We had to make do with the crappy old cesspit down in Westminster passing it. But it was never, that is not an English parliament. So they were trying to break us up. What we're seeing now with the mega movement is England is coming back and people are saying, do you know what? We've got 1,000 years of history. We ain't letting it go, Sonny Jim. And if we need J.D. Vance to come and tell these bloody communists and Fabians what we need, then we're going to have to do it.
There it is. Listen, powerful stuff, Tarquin. Always good to chat. Thank you, mate, for that. 0344 499 1000. That press conference on its way, President Trump and... you know, I almost forgot our own Prime Minister's name. Keir Starmer, President Trump, giving the joint press conference. They'll do the usual. He'll speak, then he'll speak, and then there'll be some questions. It's all coming your way. Grab the popcorn, put your feet up. Unless you're driving your car on the M6, don't do either of the above. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
know from endless examples that women are often persuaded, cajoled into staying in abusive, physically, sexually abusive relationships by these courts. We know that they lose the custody of their children when the children reach a certain age. We know that they're not given the same financial standing and rights to inheritance. It really is an absolute regime that has no place in this country of ours.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dave, South Gloucestershire, says our interests are best with America. You made the point which confirms that Donald Trump is clearly driven by and works for the good of his country. But, and this is key, he is open and honest about that, so we know where we stand. The EU are secretive, undemocratic, greedy, controlling, demanding, as they have always been, and work for who they feel is deserving and who will benefit them at the time. They do not have and never will work to the benefit of us. What we need is a strong leader, someone who is not easily fooled by the EU and is not obsessed by them. We need a Trump, not a Starmer, Miliband or Macron, says Dave. Yeah, cracking points as well. It is quite the most peculiar setup, that whole EU thing. The more you look at it, nothing wrong with having a group of countries together, trading with each other and finding sort of, some harmony with trading, and sometimes your laws might have to adjust if you're in a big block. I get that. If you're going to start trading steel and rivets around the place, you want to make sure they're in the same flipping size and measurements. That makes sense. What it shouldn't have extended to is rules around the laws of our land, of what you can and cannot do, etc. And that was kind of where it was, the mission creep was kind of happening militarily, in terms of police, and goodness knows where else. Don't let anybody tell you that's a conspiracy theory. That's exactly what the direction of travel, and that's why many people, this is the bit I understood more than almost any other, apart from the undemocratic bit when it came to the vote, the bit I understand more than anything else was that the European project hadn't completed. It was still in, and you sit there thinking, hang on, what's more to do? It's a conglomerate of countries that are trading with each other. That's what it's meant to be, isn't it? But there's still more to do, like what? They had 2 parliaments, a currency, an anthem, and a president. Sounds like a country to me. This is Georgina down in London. Georgina, we await the big press conference, but where should our allegiances be? Good afternoon to you.
Right, well, our allegiances should be with our own country, but if we're going to do any business, then I suggest we do it with the US of A. Mm-hmm. That's where I suggest. Now, I've been watching all the goings-on while Mr. Trump and his beautiful wife have been in England, but it's a very sad day for me, Ian, when Donald Trump holds more respect for our flag, culture and heritage than our own government. Yeah. It absolutely is shameful that he should have to remind Starmer, albeit very diplomatically, that he is aware of the deterioration of the care given to our farmers and veterans and the gross deterioration of our freedom of speech and lack of democracy. Remembering we are the ones who introduced democracy, freedom of speech and law to the United States of America. So to have our government having to be reminded of the aforementioned, to me, that's a wake-up call. It's just how bad things have deteriorated here in the United Kingdom. I know that Starmer would have been squirming in his chair at those points, because they were directed at him. But I'm just saying that the banquet was paid for by the taxpayer, not him. So yet again, we are funding his lifestyle and having to eat cake whilst he eats his dinner. Starmer has no interest in our pomp and ceremony, nor our heritage, as he's tried everything in his power to eradicate our Britishness, our very essence. Also, I question very much his sincerity for the love of our beloved monarchy. I'm surprised that that man who shows such communist traits even accepted a knighthood. I would have thought that that would have been in direct conflict with everything he stands for, or in fact believes in. Donald Trump is very aware of what we, the British people, are having to endure under this communist-style government, and I'm sure that these points will be diplomatically addressed during the meeting at Chequers today. I only wish that Mr. Trump would have been allowed to talk to members of the British public so we could get a real grasp on how badly our wonderful country has deteriorated, as our country is also one that he genuinely has a fondness for, and he loves it too.
Bang on, as ever. Great monologue. Georgina, thank you very much indeed. There was that sense that Trump was sitting there slightly more in awe and impressed by the surroundings and the decadence and all that goes with the history and the ceremony, and there were horses and carriages and bands and God knows what else. So he was more impressed by, and I know an outsider might well be more impressed by it, but if I'd have been the Prime Minister, I'd have probably passed out with pride being part of that. Alan is in Salford on allegiances. Alan, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Well, fantastic deal, without doubt. But the only trading partner we want is America, to be honest with you, Ian. But what this has done today is like an undocumented migrant in the waters of this country, and has been thrown a lifeline, or he thinks.
Yeah.
This is what he's thinking, Mr. Starmer. He's going to be saved and the rest of it.
Correct.
But you see, Trump, I admire Trump. He's a businessman and a prime minister. A president. He deals with Putin, who he doesn't like. He deals with Xing, who he doesn't like. You know, these other people he doesn't like. And I don't believe he likes Starmer, to be honest with you. And when he writes his memoirs, I think you'll find this will happen.
You might be right. I do wonder about the Trump thing, because I wonder whether the friendliness or the courtesy he's shown to Starmer, which he hasn't shown to all other world leaders, I reckon that's only based on the fact that his mum was British.
Yes,
she was Scottish, of course. I can't think of a character that somebody like Trump would hate more than someone like Starmer.
No, but you see, America wanted this deal. They want AI, and they want to, get the money out. When they make money in America, they want to get the money out and invest it.
Yeah, sure.
So that's great, and it's really setting a lifeline to him. But I don't think it'll last 12 months. But also, I hope I seen Rachel from accounts was there. I noticed that.
Big Rach is there. Yvette Cooper is there as well. Oh, you mean at the bash last night?
Well, I hope she doesn't start doing the figures to stop this black hole. I hope someone smashes her in the hands with a lump hammer to stop her trying to do the next budget.
Well, yeah, metaphorically speaking, of course. We wouldn't want any violence against. But I hear you. Listen, Alan, thank you very much indeed. Brutal stuff, but he was creating just a fictitious image, you understand, Ofcom fans. We're going to pause momentarily. We're going to come back. We are waiting for that conference between Trump and Starmer. I don't think this is going to be held in the marquee affair that we saw the earlier business conference being held at. Starmer is coming out of Chequers at the moment with his wife. I would imagine the president is about to follow. Is that President Trump? Oh, there he is, yeah, President Trump. And his wife, she wasn't there, was she, half an hour ago? She was back at the palace. So she's flown in the meantime because he left her there. So they're having a little look in the garden. Keir Starmer, Melania Trump and the Starmers admiring the autumnal flower beds and bushes of Chequers. Rather impressive place. Never been myself. Maybe you have. But I don't know if that's a photo call or whether it's just a moment of taking in the sheer history of the place. This, of course, is the Prime Minister's official residence. It's a heck of a bonus for that gig when you become the PM, that you have this incredible grace and favour, private, enormous house of such historic significance that comes with the job. That's your weekend pad, as it were. They are cementing the special relationship, and what we're expecting very, very soon is that press conference between the two men. Invariably, these involve, I don't need to tell you, both of them, he speaks first, then the other one speaks, then they take a load of questions. In the audience will be British journalists and American journalists. Some will fire off questions relevant to the issues that they've been discussing, trade and the like, but others, of course, I'm sure they never used to do this, will just completely go off-piste. You know that the words Peter Mandelson are going to get mentioned. You know Epstein is going to get mentioned as well, and probably Palestine and recognition of it from one of them will get mentioned too. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK.
It is talk, just gone 2:30. Trump and the reason they're outside of Chequers, by the way, they're not just taking in the beautiful flora and fauna of Chequers, they are watching a Red Devils display. The parachute group who are jumping out of some aeroplanes, flying it's quite impressive stuff actually, coming down. One fella's got red stuff firing out of his boots. You don't get that with a pair of Nike Air Jordans, do you? That's clearly some special kit he's wearing. Flying the American flag as they come down, landing beautifully, pretty much on the cross of the Chequers lawn. Starmer just went, yay, when he landed. He literally did a fist pump when he landed. If you're not watching it. And the Union, so the American flag, and now another parachutist with the Union flag as well coming down. In front of the President, the Prime Minister and their wives on the Chequers lawn. From that, we understand they're going to leg it to another ornate room, hopefully where there'll be 2 podiums, and a waiting press corps who will be there to fire questions at that joint press conference. Peter Barnes joins us, political strategist. This kind of, just what we're seeing now, Peter, is sort of sealing off the optics, if you like. It's been a beautiful couple of days for the visuals in that. Doing what we do best with bands and horses and marches and all sorts of carriages and goodness knows what else. And there it is on the lawn of the Prime Minister's official residence. The Red Devils land with a massive flag of each country attached to their back.
Yeah, it's something that we do very well, isn't it? But the President came here with the promise of pomp, pageantry and trade. That was the main thing. That's why he's here. You know, let's not forget that, you know, we have the tariff situation and we got this brand new American tech deal. You know, there's it's quite a lot for Keir Starmer to kind of bang the drum about here, actually. However, I have a feeling it's going to all come crumbling down when they go in front of the press, because it's going to be front and centre. What did you know about Peter Mandelson? Yep. And that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah, and of course the curious thing about the Mandelson story, another one of these many kind of stories that come along every now and again in life, there is a bizarre crossover with Donald Trump, of course. Because the same, that both men have been plagued by the same name, Jeffrey Epstein. That's bound to be referenced at some point by a journalist who's awaiting there, as will things like recognising Palestine as well. Yeah. These are the things that Starmer hopes don't come up, but as sure as night follows day, they absolutely will, Peter.
I can't think of a single thing Starmer would want to come up, if I'm being brutally honest, because the Bank of England has kept interest rates where they are. We've had the state of Palestine, we've had Epstein. You know, it's been probably the worst 2 weeks for a Prime Minister I can think of for some time, actually. You know, it's just one thing after another. But we have to remember, all of it was self-induced. All of these crises, all of this situation, everything he finds himself in is because of his actions and because of the actions of his government. 100%. You know, I don't have any sympathy for him at all.
Yeah. It's very hard to muster any kind of in that respect. Of course, the press conference. Of course, it was going to be 2:20. So we get this kind of detail. Like the day before, you get a rough idea. 2:20 to 2:30, and I sat there this morning thinking this will never happen at 2:20 or 2:30, and we know that they've only just gone in from the Chequers lawn, so we could be another 20 minutes or so as they make their way to wherever this is taking place. As the guy that used to
help put these things together, they never run on time.
Yeah. What is it that stops it, Peter? What is?
Well, you know, it's the leader of the free world or the Prime Minister. You know, things tend to crop up every now and then that they need to take care of, but also they naturally run behind anyway. You'll find the number 10 in general runs about, I think somebody averaged it out at about 5.5 hours behind every single day in terms of its productivity and where it's supposed to be. Because if you go back to the old Harold Macmillan quote, the worst thing about being Prime Minister is events, dear boy, events. Yeah. And, you know, whenever these things happen, there's always something else that's going to happen. You know, you can't plan for the unforeseen, but, you know, they do their best. But, yeah, I have to admit, this time around, Trump loves to ramble, but he's taken it to a whole new level recently. I don't have any sympathy. I don't have any sympathy for the press people either, if I'm being honest.
I can remember as well, you know, years ago when Nigel Farage interviewed Donald Trump and he sat in a radio studio pretty much all afternoon. It was penciled in for 1 o'clock, and of course, you know, the White House are saying, well, the president will be ready when he's ready, and of course his diary is full. But then a phone call comes in from the Prime Minister of India or the President of Pakistan or whatever, and you've got to take those calls, and then you have another meeting, then there's an emergency, then there's a crisis, then they stop that, then there's another one. And Nigel waited all afternoon. I think in the end it didn't happen, and then the next time they did it, after about 3.5 hours of Nigel just sitting in a chair waiting, suddenly, you know, a voice comes on saying, "Hey, Mr. Farage, this is the White House presidential reception. I'm putting you through to the president." But quick, we better go. No. So yes,
that's how it works.
Indeed, and I only because that's exactly the kind of thing. Timings and events completely out of kilter and against the the very organised thing they have.
The terrifying thing that can happen is if they all leave the room, don't say anything.
So, in terms of this one, we said at the beginning, Peter, the optics, no one's going to criticise that, and there's really nowhere on the planet that can put it on in quite this way. I said at the very beginning, a banquet in a castle with a king. That's the kind of thing that most countries around the world have written in their history books. Yeah. For us, it's how we still do it.
Most 8-year-old children would love this as well. But yeah, it's soft power, and the kind of pageantry and the pomp of the circumstance is one of the best things we do in this country. It is very powerful. Everybody wants to be part of it. All world leaders, no matter what they say, want to be invited here. So for Trump to get this, and I hate saying it, but it is a historic second visit. It's becoming as bad as smash the gangs and stop the boats and take back control, that phrase. But we have to kind of remember this is unprecedented.
Yeah.
A president's never gotten 2 invites. Well, there is a reason for it, obviously, like I say, with the trade situation. But the way that the government is actually quite able to wield its soft power is very impressive.
Yep.
Because I often thought that Boris was never very good at it because he often overshadowed it. But then Cameron never really saw the point of it. But I have to admit, I will say that the Starmer team have really nailed on this kind of usage of the royal family and the history of the nation to kind of woo Trump and to woo other world leaders as well. Because it's not just Trump that it works on. It worked very well with Macron.
Yeah. Yes, that's very true. It actually did. In terms of what it means in the wider scheme of things, Peter, we know about there's been a couple of big old tech trade deals that were announced worth tens of billions of pounds. Yes. That's fabulous. Where does it leave us in terms of our allegiance with the United States? There's no one's ever rekindled fully the Thatcher-Reagan thing. We know that Blair and Bush gave it a darn good go, and that seemed to work, even though in that case they were, from opposite parties. As this pair are today, Republican and Labour, where's our future in that respect? Where are we on that kind of spectrum of allegiances when it comes to the United States?
Well, that's an interesting question, because the one thing you have to remember, what made the Thatcher and Reagan relationship so special is they were genuinely friends. That was the difference. There was a personal relationship, because that's how the special relationship actually started. It was between Churchill during the war, reaching out to presidents to tease them to get America involved in the Second World War. It really was born out of that relationship. And I would say that it's a lot better than where it was about this time a year ago, I will say. They have worked very hard behind the scenes, and I know that a lot of the kind of the number 10 team in the Cabinet Office have wooed and done everything they can with all of the American delegations that have ever been here, whether they be formal ones or informal ones. But, there is still that tense animosity. And I have to admit, the kind of, I don't know if you saw it, but in the little press conference they did before, it was kind of, my friend Trump and our friend Trump. It was so heavily laid on. It was like, it was awkward, and it made your skin crawl a little bit. But
just a bit.
It's what we've got to do. But I will say that Starmer has played the relationship with Trump very, very well. He's done it a lot better than I thought he was going to, which wasn't very high, to be fair. But I have to admit, he has positioned himself quite well. But there are still these big issues, such as free speech and on Ukraine. They are poles apart, really are poles apart.
100%. Peter, as ever, thank you for speaking with you this afternoon. I know you were incredibly busy on various projects. Peter Barnes, political strategist, with us on the programme. Press conference on its way when it happens. That's all I can say. Back to your calls. Grace down in London. How are you doing, Grace? Afternoon to you.
I'm very best, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I do feel more connected to America than Europe, I suppose, because I grew up with some American TV programs rather than European TV programs.
Yeah.
But I felt that while it was nice hearing Trump reel off various things, his words were rather hollow or contradictory. I mean, for example, I think it was Charles who mentioned the Human Genome Project, and then Trump subsequently talked about how it's great that our countries have been involved with scientific progress together. But Trump has been really dismantling a lot of scientific institutions and rejecting science and suggesting during COVID that people should inject themselves with bleach. The Human Genome Project, for me, brings to mind a guy called Francis Collins. He wrote a book called The Language of God about how DNA indicates that there's a designer, i.e. God. So I'm really interested in the Human Genome Project.
Yeah. There's some very serious implications, and certainly from a religious perspective, something I know you feel very strongly about. I mean, that's not an irrelevant part of this conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, Trump has said that he thinks that he's on a mission from God to make America great again, but he's also at the same time very much contradicted the ways that God has told us to be humble, to have love for others. And Trump also mentioned a theologian, C.S. Lewis, in his speech yesterday, but he's again shown that he doesn't have a grasp of theology. So a lot of what he said was nice sounding, you know, talking about how our countries have done a lot for humanity, but he's terminated humanitarian aid. What he was saying was kind of not really in line with what he's actually done or demonstrated. So I hope that we can continue the special relationship, but I don't feel that Trump himself necessarily adheres to the kind of values and institutions that our countries have had connecting us.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is a... You know, he's a sort of narcissistic, and I don't say that as an insult. In many respects, it's the bit that serves him most well. He's been a businessman. It's been his name on the tin. He had a very domineering father in that initial relationship. His business empire has been up and down. He's been bankrupt more times than you can imagine. But he's always kind of managed to somehow pull himself back up, never lost a dime himself, but some of his companies didn't do so well. And I look at all of that and I wonder whether he kind of lives literally in the moment. I mean, it's true psychopathic territory. And when I use, again, for those listening going, he's the psychopath, he's not a serial killer. Psychopath is a word that's used, some of the biggest and best business brains in the world are diagnosed as psychopaths. It means many things. And in this respect, I wonder if it serves Trump well, but it's sort of, perhaps you see the shortcomings of that kind of personality when it comes to, words and meaning and how much of it is heartfelt, etc.
Yeah, well, when he was kind of on the political scene initially, about a decade ago, I was thinking I shan't just listen to what people who I agree with politically are saying about him. I shan't just listen to what mainstream media is saying about him. I'll follow him myself online to see his own words. And his own words, the narcissism really irks me. And a lot of what he says implies that he doesn't necessarily... He's got a lot of confidence, and that could be a good thing, but he doesn't necessarily have an awful lot of willingness to listen to experts who he probably needs to listen to sometimes, or a lot of forethought about the longer-term implications of some of what he does.
All right, on that point, Grace, I've got to step in because with that press conference is going to be starting shortly. I thank you for that interesting down the kind of a different avenue of Trump and the inner workings of the man. Trump Starmer News Conference is on its way. Keep it here. This is Talk.
Birdie tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions, and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We are talking about allegiances. The press conference between Trump and Stump. Well, that's how they would be known, wouldn't it? As a kind of idyllic couple. Please welcome Stump. Trump and Starmer is going to be happening very, very soon. Dignitaries are in the room, podiums are up, flags have been put ornately placed behind them, and the awaiting press are there ready with a pack of questions. We're asking as well, bearing in mind what's been said over the last 48 hours, where's your allegiances in terms of, or where is our allegiances? Should it be with the United States? Should it be with places like the EU? Cliff in Berkshire says, I voted not to join the common market when Heath first mooted it. The EU was always going to morph into some kind of authoritarian state with sharp elbows. How can you set up an organisation that gets a whole host of nations to give away their sovereignty? How can such an organisation have an army, a seat at the UN, a diplomatic corps, etc.? It makes no sense. It only makes sense if you acknowledge that you are creating a new country. Then it makes sense. But unless you do, which I'm agreeing with Cliff here, was clearly the kind of underlying. They never said it out loud, and of course you have some. You still have your own traditions and your own anthems and all the rest of it. But naturally, the whole project was constructed on this becoming an ever closer, harmonised group of countries with a parliament. In fact, two parliaments, curiously, and an anthem and a currency and a president. I mean, that by any definition, you could ask a 10-year-old what that means. They would say, well, it's a country, surely. A country has a leader and an anthem and a parliament and a currency. You've got to be some kind of, incredible strategist of political machinations to recognise that. So it was flawed in that respect. Many times over. Louise is in Kent. What have you got for us, Louise? Good afternoon to you.
Well, I was actually thinking about the soft power that we saw displayed.
Yep.
Because we need to be so proud of what we can do. If you reflect on Saturday, on the march in London, you reflect yesterday, there's a lot of pride actually still in our country.
True.
And when I look at things, you see, when you compare what we saw yesterday to that absolute what's-it show in Alaska with Putin. What a difference. What a difference. And how wonderful that we can do that, show that wonderful soft power.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously they did the thing on the tarmac, and Putin walked down one red carpet and Trump walked down another, and I guess it served it was meant to be a steely moment. It wasn't meant to be kind of, cuddly and ornate and beautiful and fairy tale like. But boy, I know which one I prefer.
Yeah, but what a wonderful thing to show on the world stage about what we can do with that. But you see, when I reflect on it all, look at it. On Saturday, all those flags, British flags, and yet the Palestinian march, the alternative 5,000, only Palestinian flags. You have to look yesterday, so you had the anti-royalists out there and the anti-Trump. Again, only Palestinian flags and bits and pieces and down with Trump. And yet, they don't want the royals and yet they want a democratic, be voted in head of state, and yet they don't like one, Trump or whatever, as well. So what do they want? And yet our country, we can do it if we can. We need to build on this, Ian.
100%.
To raise our pride, to realise all... I mean, I was just reading a post online now. He said, now here's 40 things that Britain have done. Brilliant things. You know, DNA and all these things, the Nobel Peace Prizes that we have done. We bought railways. We need to be shouting from the rooftops about what we can do. And yet we've got a government and leaders who seem utterly determined to trash this country, teach our kids that we're rubbish. Yeah. And it's not true, Ian. It's not true.
It is not true, and you're right to raise it as well. Louise, love it. Thank you very much indeed for that. The press conference is, well, I was about to say it's going to start clearly in the next few minutes, but as we look, and if you're watching us in vision, you will notice that there's a lot of people still milling around. Where does that phrase come from? Milling around. Anyway, they're milling. There's a lot of milling. Maybe it's a Miliband thing. Milling, to mill, the verb to mill means to do not very much. Oh yeah, there you go, Miliband. It does kind of etymologically work, I suppose. So the fact they're milling suggests that the two leaders are not yet about to walk into the room. Somebody's testing the microphone at the moment. They have a couple of US flags, a couple of UK flags behind them, as they always would. I'm not specifically sure what specific room this is that they've chosen, but it's beautiful, it's ornate, it's wood panelled. There's a big old fireplace behind them with everything in situ, and of course 2 podiums in front of that ready for Starmer and Trump to both firstly give their individual comments on the visit and what it means and the significance and the partnership going forward. You know, there's nothing like this special relationship. We'll hear an awful lot of that. But then perhaps the main bit of these conferences, and ever more so these days, are the press questions. Although this comes from Heavy, says, I'm sorry, as much as I like Trump, with some of the things he says, all this sucking up and brown-nosing is too much for me. They all do it. It costs the taxpayer to watch all the pomp and forced, sometimes fake words when we are struggling to have to accept this expensive nonsense. It's appalling and disgusting in my book. I mean, that is a view. Julia Hartley-Brewer said this morning, it's nowhere she would least want to be than that banquet last night. I'd have paid a lot of money to see, you know, if somebody said, right, you can go to that banquet or go to see, I don't know, Oasis or Chelsea in a Champions League final. I might be compromised on the latter, but I'd be at the flipping banquet, mate. David's in Cheshire. David, what have you got for us? Back to that issue of immigration and the crisis there. Your thoughts?
Hi, Ian. Yeah, first time I've rang in. I watched the show a lot. I love the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Unbelievable. You're great. I like all the presenters on there.
Thank you. That's very kind, David. Appreciate
it. Yeah, basically, we live in Lymm, Cheshire, a nice leafy village. I don't know whether you know Lymm. It's gorgeous.
There's a Lymm in Kent as well. Did you know that?
Pardon? Is there? Yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
There you go. And they're not dissimilar counties, of course, Cheshire and Kent.
No.
Full of leafy villages, as you've just described.
Absolutely. Like I say, I'm no guy with loads of money or anything like that. I've always worked all my life. I'm a bricklayer by trade.
Nice.
And it's just, the country's in a mess at the minute. It's just been going down the sun. Even before all this flag putting up and stuff, which I think is unbelievable. It's brilliant. Pride in the country. Mm-hmm. I had a Union Jack flying way before that. I've always had pride in my country. But it seems to be anything you say now, you're a racist. If you say, anything about Britain, the flag, or you've got a flag in, you go, oh, he must be racist. It's just out of control. It's absolutely horrendous. We've got a migrant hotel down 3 miles down the road in Altrincham, the Cresta Court. You've probably heard of that. Yep. We actually got married there, me and my wife, 19 years ago.
Nice.
Stayed in there, and now when you go past, you wouldn't even recognise it. It's just like a dumping ground for immigrants, basically. My daughter, who's 13, wanted to go into Altrincham, and I'm that paranoid, I wouldn't let her go.
No, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. There's 200 blokes that no one knows anything about. Well, you wouldn't do that with any 200 blokes, whoever they were, right?
Exactly, Ian. And that's the thing is, I've got a 22-year-old daughter and I've got a 14-year-old daughter, 2 girls. You know, I've only got the dog in the house that sticks up for me, so I'm outnumbered by the women. But it's scary times. It's scary times. The country is going down.
And it doesn't make you I specifically used that phrase when I said it wouldn't matter who the people. If you've got 200 men that you don't know anything about, whoever they happen to be, it's not racist to identify that. It's not racist to be scared. It's not like you're scared of brown people or something. It's the fact there's like a couple of hundred blokes stuffed into a hotel, hanging around, having a cigarette outside, don't know who they are, where they came from, what their intentions are, nothing about it at all. That is a crisis.
Exactly. It's not good. Like I say, the Trump visit is the show that was put on for Trump was unbelievable, with the soldiers.
It's great, wasn't it?
But it was unbelievable. But against Starmer, he'll be there answering questions truthfully. And the government, they're just running it into the floor. I was watching a little interview with Liz Truss from someone from GB News. Sorry, I shouldn't mention them on the show, but I was watching something, and even Liz Truss said when she was in government, and I know she did a terrible job, etc., but she said she can't get anything done in government without internally changing, which is the blob, basically.
That's it, and it's that, and it's that, you know, these curious systems that they've had underpinning everything. You know, whenever I've spoken to anybody, that exactly the point you've just made in that respect, David, it's just you're up against this kind of wall, whatever way you turn. It's like some kind of bizarre fairground hall of mirrors moment. You don't know where to go. Look, I've got to move, David, for no other reason than time. Thank you very much indeed for that great call. By the way, originating from the verb mill, we talked about people milling around. Where did that come from? Has its roots in Middle English and refers to the circular, purposeless motion of cattle in a mill. There you go. It's like call my bluff, this, isn't it? Yeah, I kind of thought it might be something to do with a mill, but that's the reason. Milling around, purposeless. That's the definition. The press conference at Chequers, I'm pretty sure is about to start. I was going to say I base this on my gut instinct, which counts for diddly, frankly. All the journos have sat down in this room at Chequers. The podiums are ready. The flags haven't fallen over. That beautiful fireplace and panelled room is ready to go. Somebody has just walked out of a wooden door, but it's neither Keir Starmer nor Donald Trump. But it does usually suggest that very, very shortly and swiftly they'll be followed by someone else. I don't know if they're going to walk out the same door or whether there's a door on kind of each side, almost like a football match. One will come out one set of dressing rooms. I'd assume right up until the point that they speak, they're both taking notes and advice from their own group of advisors and characters, personal secretaries and the like that hang around with them. And then out they come. Neither find this bit, the first bit, particularly tricky. They will both speak from more or less prepared, probably more like bullet point lists than anything else, rather than a strict script. They will both be quite at ease with the first section, and he will speak first, Trump or Starmer. I would guess Mr. Starmer. No evidence for that. That's how it usually works. And he'll talk about how amazing it was in the special relationship, and wasn't it fantastic, and look what we did, and it was so good to have you here, Mr. President, and please come back again. And then Trump will do the same. But the bit that, of course, most watch out for, which is where often the headlines come from, although, you know, these political operators these days are very sharp. I don't think they're going to stand on too many landmines as once upon a time they might have done. They'll be prepared for Epstein questions. There'll be no Einstein moment. Epstein questions. They'll be prepared for questions about recognising Palestine as a state. They'll be prepared for questions on steel tariffs. I'm sure that's going to be there as well. Trump in particular bats this stuff off. I mean, he doesn't, you know, he gets on with it, and when he's fed up with answering it, he just moves to the next question. Starmer can look a little more flustered. He's much more of an awkward character in these moments. It's not his natural skin. I don't think he's particularly amazing at it. He gets away with it in a lawyery sense because he knows how to speak and he knows how to speak publicly. But what does he mean? So that's the bit to really watch for and listen for. The questions from the audience, and the audience in this case are some assembled dignitaries representing both countries. Arguably there'll be some of our cabinet there, I would imagine. I think Yvette Cooper, Foreign Secretary, is there, probably in the audience. But primarily this is about the press, and that press will consist of British journalists and American journalists primarily. There'll be some other international characters in the mix as well. But as soon as that wooden door opens again, I tell you what, if Stephen Mulhern walks out of it, I'm gone. Has Mulhern got the gig? Is he hosting it? I had my name down at that corporate agency for that as well. Never happened. We'll wait and we'll see what happens. In the meantime, let's go to another call. We can just speak to Kevin in Leicestershire. Forgive me, Kevin, if we get cut off. It won't be my fault. It'll be Keir Starmer's.
I'll be as quick as I can. Nice to talk to you, Ian.
And to you too.
Don't want to deprive the nation of hearing the wonderful Keir Starmer, so I will be quick.
You're so generous.
Of course. My call was actually referring to the Israel point that Hamas, well, are going to get their own country, if you like.
Recognised by 147 now, including us from Sunday.
Yes, of course. My question to that then is, are they going to supply themselves with their own power, or are Israel still going to have to continue to do that?
Do you know what's interesting? I wish I'd kept the list. It would be easy to probably find, Kevin, but things you need to do to be recognised as a country, and I don't think they tick any boxes.
Right. So Israel will just have to carry on supplying them power. If they want to take any action, they've got to just give them the notice like they always do. Oh, we're going to go into this area, so please evacuate, like all normal wars do, of course. I really can't understand how so many so-called intelligent people think that there is some kind of genocide going on there and this is all bad on Israel.
It's a war, right? It's a war.
It's not really, though, is it? The population is going up. So it's not a genocide, it's a war. I suppose you could call it a war. I'll agree with you there.
But I mean, look, no one's defending people dying. It's terrible, whether it happened in Dresden, whether it happens in Gaza. It's awful to see. But bad things do happen when there's a conflict.
Yeah, of course it does. And I don't want to see anyone die. And that's probably not the same from the left. They'd want to see, well, Hamas certainly want to see all the Jews die. I don't want anyone to die. I'd love it to just stop. But Hamas will love this. They will just want, okay, they don't want two nations, they want one.
Yep.
They want it all to be theirs, you know. Well, why can't Israel just have one place to live in? Just one. You know, that's their land, you know. At the end of the day, they're having this bit snipped off from them. And our government, I do not stand with Keir Starmer on this. I'm with Trump and Israel. And I just think, and I'm a clever person, but
these are our allies, right? These are our natural allies, allies culturally and spiritually. There's no doubt about that. It's not just about trade, it's about something more, right?
Of course it is, and it's been going on for a hell of a long time. And someone on the show made a very interesting point earlier.
Yep.
When we try to do business with the EU, they make it difficult for us. America are lenient with us. There's a big difference there. I know who I'd rather work with, you know, and it just baffles me. I just can't understand why they're talking about making Palestine its own state when really you only got to scratch the surface slightly. You can see that Israel tell them when they're going to go into an area and bomb it. Yeah. They tell them, they supply them power. If a genocide, they'd turn the power off at night and they'd carpet bomb the lot. If they wanted to cause a genocide, they've got far more artillery. It's just ridiculous. It's almost, well, I could say other things to it, but yeah.
I get it. And I hear you. Listen, Kevin, great call. Thank you very much indeed for that on the issue of Israel. On a completely separate point. Oh, by the way, Jill in Berkshire says, I feel like I'm waiting for a court case to begin. It's kind of got a bit of that feel to it, isn't it? There's got the wood panelling. Mark says, we referenced the funny how these things develop conversations out of conversations. We were talking about the word milling after I just simply referenced there was a lot of journalists milling around. Mark says, Ian Collins is wondering what milling means. It relates to a miller who uses a milling wheel to separate the wheat from the chaff to produce flour for bread. Ah, now that's different, of course, to the previous bovine-based interpretation, which was about cows wandering aimlessly around a mill. But we're in the mill-based ballpark, I think we can say that. Meanwhile, back at the press conference, everyone is standing up. The two leaders are about to take to the podiums. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Donald Trump addressing in Chequers live, and you're hearing it here now on Talk.
Mr. President, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Chequers. This historic second state visit is a moment to celebrate the unique bond between our two countries. But today we've gone far beyond that. We've renewed the special relationship for a new era. The United Kingdom and the United States stand together today as first partners on defence, first partners in trade, with the groundbreaking deal we struck in May, and now with the new agreement that we've just signed this afternoon.
So this is Starmer and President Trump at Chequers giving this live press conference.
New agreement that we've just signed this afternoon. We're confirming our status as the first partners in science and technology, ready to define this century together, just as we did the last. This tech partnership has the power to change lives. It's our chance to ensure that technologies like AI, quantum and others amplify human potential, solve problems, cure diseases, make us richer and freer, strengthen the cause of democracy, not tyranny. This is the territory on which the future will be won. So this partnership today is a signal of our determination to win this race together and to ensure it brings real benefits in jobs, in growth, in lower bills, to put more hard-earned cash in people's pockets at the end of each month. That's what we're determined to deliver. And we're bringing businesses with us. We've just come from a fantastic meeting with business leaders where we set out this vision. They have responded with new deals and investment, breaking every record that we have. £250 billion flowing both ways across the Atlantic. That is a record. Expected to create 15,000 jobs here in the United Kingdom. High-skilled jobs in cutting-edge sectors where people can build careers for the long term, changing lives in communities up and down our country. And look, while we shape this bond for a new era, the fundamentals have not changed. Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defence relationship in the world. Our warriors train together and they fight together. Our industries build together, everything from fast jets to the new AUKUS-class submarines. So now, as we drive up defence spending, we're going to sweep away the barriers to working together on new defence technologies so we can stay ahead of our adversaries. We're united in defence and security, yes, absolutely. But we're also united in the pursuit of peace. We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East, get the aid in, free the hostages, and ultimately bring Israel and the region back towards a comprehensive plan which can deliver peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians alike. We're also working together to end the killing in Ukraine. In recent days, Putin has shown his true face, mounting the biggest attacks since the invasion began, with yet more bloodshed, yet more innocents killed, and unprecedented violations of NATO airspace. These are not the actions of someone who wants peace. So we've discussed today how we can build our defences further, support Ukraine, and decisively increase the pressure on Putin to get him to agree a peace deal that will last. And President Trump, you have led the way here, and we will continue to stand and work together for security and for peace. Mr. President, next year we'll celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States. We've come on a long journey together since 1776. But it's no exaggeration to say that the partnership our two nations have built has shaped the world from the beaches of Normandy to the founding of NATO, to the creation of technologies that have revolutionised our lives. Time and time again, it is British and American men and women side by side, changing the path of history and turning it towards our values, towards freedom, democracy and the rule of law. In Britain, we take huge pride in that. And let's be clear, this relationship is not just about history, it's about the future. It's about the benefits it delivers now and for decades to come, to make our people safer and better off. We've shown today that we're delivering those benefits, improving people's lives. So we will go into that anniversary year more optimistic than ever and more confident than ever about our two great nations and what they can achieve side by side. Thank you. And it is now my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, very much. Prime Minister Starmer, Melania and I are tremendously thankful for the wonderful hospitality that you and Lady Starmer have extended today at Chequers. Quite the place, I must say, quite the place. And we're grateful beyond words for the spectacular honor of the state visit yesterday at Windsor Castle, hosted by His Majesty King Charles III and Her Majesty Queen Camilla. These are two fantastic people. We will never forget it. As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history. That is thanks in large part to the traditions of British liberty, which grew up on these isles, these beautiful, magnificent isles, and were carried by our ancestors to the New World. We're forever joined, and we are forever friends, and we will always be friends. This enduring connection is why I was thrilled that the United Kingdom was the very first country with which we made a historic trade deal, and a very good trade deal. He's a tough negotiator. I think it was a better deal for you than us, but these are minor details.
It's a very good deal for both of us.
He is a great negotiator who will extend our unparalleled security alliance into the realm of economic security for the first time, and I look forward to finalizing it very soon. We'll have it done very quickly. We have also just signed a historic technology prosperity deal, one of a kind, to ensure our countries lead the next great technological revolution side by side. In fact, we just left the business leaders, the biggest in the world. Some are in this room right now. And that was quite a meeting we had on business and trade and technology. This trip has galvanized $350 billion in deals across many sectors, and we're committed to ensuring that the UK has a secure and reliable supply of the best AI hardware and software on Earth. And we supply that, and we'll make sure we supply it in quantity to the UK. We also are joining forces on quantum computing and nuclear power, a natural partnership for close allies. The United States, as you probably have heard, is doing better than it has ever done in terms of business and investment. The stock market has hit a new high, as you know, and that's for many, many days out of our fairly short 8 months. And we seem to be hitting new highs, and I think we're going to do much better even as time goes by. Jobs are at a record, and most importantly, We have more than $17 trillion, $17 trillion, and this is during an 8-month period being invested in the country, which is not only a record, but if you compare $17 trillion to the last year of the Biden administration, they did $250 billion. They didn't do $1 trillion for the 4-year period. We did $17 trillion of investment coming in. A lot of it's because of tariffs, and a lot of it's for a lot of other reasons, but there's never been anything like it. It's an economic superstar. That's what's become. It was mismanaged and badly handled for a long period of time, but it's not badly handled anymore. So that's a record, and remember, that's up until 8 months. We have another few months to go, and that number is going to get significantly higher, especially if we win a certain case that we're waiting to hear. That will be something like the world has never seen. I want to congratulate the United Kingdom on making the vital commitment to spend 5% of GDP on defense at the NATO summit this year. We've worked together very closely in so many ways. I'm very honored to tell you that we've solved 7 wars, wars that were unsolvable, wars that couldn't be negotiated or done. The U.S. has done 7 of them. The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down. It was going to be Russia and Ukraine, but we'll see how that turns out. But that turned out to be, I thought it might be among the easiest of the group, but we had settled just about every conflict, and as you know, we're working very hard on Israel and Gaza. All that's happening over there. Complex, but it's going to get done. It'll all get done right. And likewise, Russia and Ukraine will get done. But you never know in war. You know, war is a different thing. Things happen that are very opposite of what you thought. You thought you were going to have an easy time or a hard time, and it turns out to be the reverse. As we saw in the unforgettable parade yesterday at Windsor Castle, what a place it is. The British Armed Forces carry on one of the finest military traditions in the world, one of the greatest marching bands, one of the most magnificent sights I've seen. I know that our service members look forward, and we do look so forward to working even more closely with yours as you push toward that 5% goal. And I think, Mr. Prime Minister, you're just about there. You're going to be there very quickly, along with a lot of other great countries. I want to thank NATO and our wonderful head of NATO, who's really worked very hard, Mark, for the job they've done. As you know, NATO was at 2% GDP, and they didn't pay it. Now they're at 5%, then they pay it. And we appreciate that. And we're sending a lot of weapons to NATO. NATO is paying for those weapons in full. But we're sending them, and we're doing a great job at getting them what they need. And we appreciate the fact that they're taking care of it, because the United States is into that war for $350 billion. And just really very sad. It just got out of control. They didn't know what they were doing. But over the generations, British and American warriors have shed their blood side by side in defense of liberty and freedom. And that's why it's so imperative that the United States and the United Kingdom stand together for these fundamental rights and values of the English-speaking world. And we've always stood together, and we will continue to. Just last week, a great American, Charlie Kirk, was heinously assassinated for speaking his mind. He was a great young man, incredible future. Some people said he might be president someday. I told him, I said, Charlie, I think you have a good shot someday at being president. And he just wanted to take care of youth. He loved youth. I've never seen anybody relate to youth like Charlie, and they related to him, and they're devastated. But I appreciate the many British citizens who have offered their condolences. And again, Charlie was a great person. We'll be going out to a service on Sunday. I'll be leaving with some of the people in this room just to celebrate Charlie and all that he's done. So incredible. Never seen anything like it. But I hope that together our nations can lead a movement to defend the glorious traditions of freedom on both sides of the Atlantic. there could be no greater tribute to the immortal bonds of affection and loyalty that unite the British and the American people for all of time. We have a relationship like no other. It will always be that way. We will always be united. We'll always be together. And I just want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for the great job I think you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We're going to take some questions. I'll call 2 or 3 to start with, and then I'll pass over to the President. I've got Chris Mason from the BBC first. Chris.
Thank you both. Chris Mason, BBC News. Mr. President, the UK is expected to recognise a Palestinian state in the coming days as the killing in Gaza continues. It often seems that you're the only person that Israel will listen to. What more can you say to them to tell them to stop? And why is the UK's position on a Palestinian state, in your view, wrong? And, Prime Minister, what will the recognition of a Palestinian state actually achieve? Is it not just gesture politics to appease people in your own party? Thank you both.
Well, Chris, let me just start with that, because we discussed this amongst other things. We had the best part of an hour, I think, upstairs earlier today, just one-to-one, going through a number of affairs, world affairs, in private. And we absolutely agree on the need for peace and a roadmap, because the situation in Gaza is intolerable. The hostages have been held for a very, very long time, and they must be freed. And we need aid to get into Gaza at speed. And so it's within that context of a plan for peace, which we're working hard on, which not only did we discuss this morning, but our 2 teams have been working together on, that the question of recognition needs to be seen. And so it's part of that overall package which hopefully takes us from the appalling situation we're in now to the outcome of a safe and secure Israel, which we do not have, and a viable Palestinian state. Thank you.
Well, simply, I want the hostages released now, right now, not 1, 2, we'll give you 3 more tomorrow, and, you know, like it's been, but we're the ones that got all the hostages released. We got many, many came to the Oval Office, and I've heard stories like I've never thought even possible. There was no humanity, no anything. I said to them, I said, was there any warmth shown during this stay, like they offered you a little extra meal, they gave you a little smile, and they said, don't worry, you'll be okay. And every one of them said, not even a little bit. Amazing, you know, to think that during this stay, long stay in some cases. We had a man the other day, 451 days he was there. I always ask that question. And was there any warmth shown, just a little word of, you know, encouragement? And the answer is every time, absolutely not. I'm shocked to hear it, because in the worst cases, there's always somebody that comes through. We have to remember October 7th, one of the worst, most violent days in the history of the world, not just there, the history of the world. And I got to see the tapes, and I wish I didn't see them, actually, but I got to see them. And I want an end. I want the hostages released, and I think it's going to be okay, but it has been a brutal period of time. But this has been going on for a long time. This is not something that's over the last year, 2 years, but this has been for decades and decades. But we want it to end. We have to have the hostages back immediately. That's what the people of Israel want. They want them back, and we want the fighting to stop, and it's going to stop. But a lot of bad things. You know, Hamas said that they're going to put the hostages up as bait. They're going to put the hostages in front of any attack. And that's pretty brutal. We haven't heard that one in a long time. So we have to remember that. So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score. Okay? One of our few disagreements, actually.
Great. Can I take Jack from The Sun? Jack.
Thank you both. Jack Elson from The Sun. Mr. President, in the 9 months you've been in office, you've been incredibly successful in all but eliminating crossings on your southern border.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, illegal migration is at record levels in Britain. The Prime Minister is trying to tackle that. What advice would you give to the man standing next to you on trying to stop illegal migration in Britain? And, Prime Minister, if I can just ask, the President is all about drill, baby, drill in terms of trying to secure American energy and cut bills for Americans. Meanwhile, you are turning Britain's back on oil and gas in favour of renewable energies, such as wind turbines. Why do you think that you are right and he is wrong?
So we had millions of people flowing in, totally unchecked, totally unvetted from the Biden administration. 25 million, in my opinion, that would be about 25 million. They came from prisons, they came from mental institutions, they were gang members, they were drug dealers. They came from the Congo, they came from all parts of South America, they came from everywhere. Think of it, prisons from the Congo being released into the United States, prisons opened up in Venezuela and many other countries pouring into the United States. And I couldn't believe it. And one of the reasons I decided to run. I decided to run because I don't want to be controversial, but you see what's happened and you see all the information that's come out. We won in 2020 big. And I said, let's run, we got to run, because I saw what was happening. And the worst thing that I saw was all of these people. You know, we've already solved inflation. We've solved prices. Oil is way down. Energy is way down in the United States. But what I saw happening with millions of people pouring into our country, I couldn't stand to watch it. And we've done a great job. Nobody, if you've seen the last, I appreciate your question, by the way, nobody, absolutely zero, and I'm not even sure that's possible, but it's a very liberal group that come out with those statistics. The last 3 months, we had zero. From millions of people a year ago, we had zero people enter our country illegally. And we do have people coming in legally through a legal process and testing and lots of other things. I think it's very important, and we speak about it. And I think your situation is very similar. You know, you have people coming in, and I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it's going to destroys countries from within. And we're actually now removing a lot of the people that came into our country. It's a very hard chore. We were given a very, very bad hand. Millions of people came in from prisons and mental institutions. We have to remove them. And we are removing them. We have no choice, and I feel very strongly about it. Thank you very much.
Jack, let me just deal with the question of returns, because this is obviously an issue we're taking incredibly seriously. We've struck a number of deals both on cooperation with other countries, because this is a problem right across Europe, to tackle the problem of actually breaking up the gangs that are running this trade. We have had a record number of returns, over 35,000 now, since we came into office. That's the highest number for the best part of 10 years. We struck the returns arrangement with France, and notwithstanding the challenges to that scheme, which you've seen in the last few days, a flight went off at 6:15 this morning, successfully returning someone under that scheme. So that is an important step forward. Obviously, there's no silver bullet here. There's a range of things that need to be done. But given the challenges of returning people, it is important that we're able to prove it can be done. It was done. It was done early this morning. So I can confirm that that flight went. It went successfully. And I'm pleased about that. Now we need to ramp that up at scale, which was always envisaged under the scheme, but it's very important that we have been able to prove that the proof of concept, if you like, that this can be done, and will continue in that way. On the question of energy, firstly, let me be really clear that I am absolutely determined to ensure that the price and cost of energy comes down, so that bills come down both for individuals, for families, with their household bills, but also for business, because this is so important. The mix will include oil and gas for many years to come from the North Sea. We've been clear about that for some time, but we also need to mix that with renewables, and it's the mix that's really important. And the approach I've taken on this is the same approach that I take to many other things, a pragmatic approach. Thank you, Jack.
I would like to say that we inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. We had inflation, the likes of which we've really never seen. They say 48 years, and I'll accept that, but I really don't. We had the worst inflation in the history of our country, and we had an expression that I used a lot, drill, baby, drill. And as you know, we brought fuel way down, the prices way down, and we don't do wind because wind is a disaster. It's a very expensive joke, frankly. And we got our energy prices way down. That brought the inflation way down, and now we have very little inflation. and we have a very, very strong economy. So that was very important. Drill, baby, drill. And you have a great asset here, and we spoke about it. It's called the North Sea. The North Sea oil is phenomenal, and I hope, because I love this country, you know. My mother was born in Scotland, and the Hebrides, Stornoway, that's Syria, Scotland. We were talking about it. And I want this country to do well. And you have great assets that you're going to start using, I believe, under this Prime Minister.
Thank you. And I've got Matthew from The Economist. Matthew.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Mr. President, you say that President Putin has let you down. Have negotiations run out of road, and what are your next steps to compel an end to this war?
Well, he has let me down. I mean, he's killing many people, and he's losing more people than he's killing. I mean, frankly, the Russian soldiers are being killed at a higher rate than the Ukrainian soldiers. But, yeah, he said, let me down. I don't like to see. It's death. You know, it doesn't affect the United States. We have, other than unless you end up in a world war over this thing, you could. This was a thing that would have never happened had I been president. If I were president, it would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. Most people agree it didn't happen, nor was it close to happening. And I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. I've said that many times. It was. But he would have never done what he did, except that he didn't respect the leadership of the United States. They just went through the Afghanistan total disaster for no reason whatsoever. We're going to leave Afghanistan, but we're going to leave it with strength and dignity. And we're going to keep Bagram, the big air base, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it to them for nothing. We're trying to get it back, by the way. Okay, that could be a little breaking news. We're trying to get it back because they need things from us. We want that base back. But one of the reasons we want the base is, as you know, it's an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. So a lot of things are happening, but I am very disappointed in the fact that that one's not settled. To think that we settled Azerbaijan and Albania as an example, it was going on for years. It was never going to be settled. If you remember, the Prime Minister and the presidents, they were there for many years. They said, when they were in my office, we settled. And they started off at both sides of the Oval Office, so far away. I didn't know you could be so far away. And as we were together for an hour, they kept getting closer, closer. And by the time we finished, we all hugged each other. And one said, I've been in this position for 22 years, and all I've done is kill their people. The other was there for 7 years, and all he did was kill their people. And we got it settled. And we did others, as you know. The Congo, we settled the Congo with Rwanda. That was going on, and that was a machete war. That was a gruesome war. Many people, close to 10 million people killed. We got that settled. My biggest disappointment, but it's, you know, look, we did 7, and most of them were not thought to be settleable. We did India and we did Pakistan. That's 2 nuclear. That was purely for trade. You want to trade with us, you're going to have to get along. And they were going at it hot and heavy. But the Russia situation, I hope we're going to have some good news for you coming up. But again, it doesn't affect the United States. And look, it doesn't so much affect you. Of course, you are a lot closer to the scene than we are. We have a whole ocean separating us. But I will say this, it's millions of people have died in that war, millions of souls. And they're not American. The soldiers, mostly soldiers, as you know. The soldiers are being killed at levels that nobody's seen since the Second World War. But they're being killed, and I feel I have an obligation to get it settled for that reason. Thank you.
And just to add on that question, because we have to put extra pressure on Putin. And it's only when the President has put pressure on Putin that he's actually shown any inclination to move. So we have to ramp that pressure up. I think it's important to have this conversation in the context of what's happened in recent weeks. We saw damage and bombing to the British Council in Kyiv. These are targets that it was thought until recently were not targets that would be hit. The British Council, the European Union Embassy, the Council of Ministers, where President Zelensky's ministers work, was hit. Again, these were thought to be places that wouldn't be hit. And then the incursion into Poland last week. And if you put that together, what you can see is either an emboldenment or at least an increased recklessness on Putin's part, and that's why I said earlier that they're not the actions of someone who wants peace. So we have to ramp up, and we discussed earlier today, we have built the coalition of the willing with British leadership and French leadership, stepping up with military planning in the seas, in the sky, on the ground, and ramping up what we do with the Ukrainians themselves. And of course, that, taken with an American guarantee, is now an example, I think, of the challenge of Europe stepping up to the plate, which it has done in the last few months, to show, through what we and the French have done, that we're prepared to take the lead in this and take the necessary measures.
But that's a war that could have been a third world war, and I don't think we're going to be there now. But that was heading to a third world war, and what a shame it is. What a shame it is.
Mr. President, do you want to call some of the...
I would love to call a few of them. Bev, do you want to have a question?
I'm going to come back to you.
Bev Turner, GB News. Thank you. Having been in DC for a few weeks, it's really interesting to see how you run the country as a proud Christian leader. And it really begs the question to the Prime Minister, if you don't mind, are we still a Christian country? But also...
when you say we, are you talking here or...?
Here. The UK. I'm still British. I might live in America. I'm still British. But also,
I can't give you that answer.
That's for the Prime Minister. But also, despite what we talked about in Scotland a few weeks ago, we still have 12,000 people a year here being arrested for social media posts, for free speech violations. Does that not remain an important area that there is still a lot of disagreement on?
I'd like to have you answer that.
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of a Christian country, I was christened, so that is, my church has been all my life, and we are, that is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud that we're able to do so as a country. And on free speech, that has long lived in this country, free speech. It's one of the founding values of the United Kingdom, and we protect it jealously and fiercely, and always will, and we will bear down on any limits on free speech. I draw a limit between free speech and the speech of those that want to peddle paedophilia and suicide social media to children, and therefore I'm all for free speech. I'm also for protecting children from things that will harm them, paedophiles, those that peddle suicide, which has had a terrible consequence for individual, particularly teenagers. And so that's the balance we strike. But we have had freedom of speech in this country for a very long time, and we will always protect it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brian, please.
Thank you. Prime Minister, it's good to see you again. You have a beautiful country. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Two questions. One, just recently, President Trump labeled Antifa domestic terrorists. Would you consider doing something like that in your country?
Well, we obviously will take decisions for ourselves. I don't want to comment on the decisions of the President, but we take our decisions ourselves.
And my question to you, President Trump, is there any update on the auto pen?
Yeah, it's just gotten worse from their standpoint. The people that used it, and in particular one person, was never told by Biden to do it, only spoke to Biden twice, and that was just talking about the weather, not talking about any order. And he was taking orders from people other than Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't giving those orders. You know, Joe Biden didn't believe in open borders. He didn't. I've known him for a long time. He was never the brightest bulb in the ceiling, as we know. You can go back 40 years ago and you'll see that. Go back and take a look at the hearings on Justice Thomas, and you'll see that very much. But he didn't believe in open borders and all of this nonsense that they're peddling now, which is why they're not in office any longer. It's a shame. The auto pen was illegal. It was illegally used. He never gave the orders. He never told them what to do. And I guess the only one he signed, or one of the few he signed, was the pardon for his son. But you had the congressman who, when they got the information, they found out they were guilty. and they deleted and destroyed all information, everything. You couldn't get any of it. They found out that Nancy Pelosi actually was offered the 10,000 soldiers, and she turned them down. They found out many things that were very bad. So they deleted and destroyed all information. You talk about freedom of the press and freedom of speech. How about that one? And there's not a thing. This is after a year and a half of hearings. They destroyed everything. And somebody's got to be held responsible. So Biden, what he did is they knew, I don't think he knew, but somebody knew. I don't think Biden had a clue about anything, if you want to know the truth. But they gave a pardon to those Congress people. They gave a pardon. Those people are so guilty. They gave a pardon, but Biden didn't know about it. The people, whether it's Lisa or any of those people in there that really ran it, I know them all. And they're sick people. They're smart people. They're very smart. They're probably brilliant, but they're sick in ideology. And they were running the auto pen, and it was totally illegal what he did. And I hope it's going to be so adjudged.
Do you want to take one more, and then I'll go back to British?
Let's see. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. In the deal that you're working on for the Chinese to sell TikTok to an American buyer, are the Americans going to have to come up with their own algorithm, or are they going to continue to use the successful but addictive Chinese algorithm?
So what we're doing, and we're speaking to President Xi on Friday to see if we can finalize something on TikTok, because there is tremendous value, and I hate to give away value, but I like TikTok. It helped get me elected. In fact, Charlie said, "Sir, you ought to get on TikTok. You'd be great." I said, "Really? Tell me about TikTok." And we, as you know, we did unbelievably well with youth, like at a level that no Republican has ever even dreamt of. And in what, look, I think we won it for a lot of reasons, but that was a reason we won the election by such a big number. TikTok has tremendous value. The United States has that value in its hand because we're the ones that have to approve it. I specifically get the right to approve it. The people that are investing it are among the greatest investors in the world, the biggest, the richest, and they'll do a great job. And we're doing it in conjunction with China. But we are getting, the United States is getting a tremendous fee plus, I call it a fee plus, for just making the deal. And I don't want to throw that out the window. I can say this, that you'll have a lot of very unhappy youth. And I use TikTok very legitimately, very straight, just statements every day, little statements, short statements. "Sir, make it short, please." And TikTok Jack, we call him. It was pretty good. Did a good job for me, I guess. But no, I'd rather reap the benefits. I mean, the kind of money we're talking about is very substantial. And it'll be owned by all American investors and, the best investors and the, very rich people and companies are going to be owning it. Very, very straight, very legitimate companies, and really companies that love America. So they're going to be owning it. It's a big thing. And on a much bigger scale, and probably that's why we were able to get that, but on a much bigger scale, we're pretty close to a deal. We may do an extension with China, but it's an extension based on the same terms that we have right now, which are pretty good terms.
And my question for Prime Minister Starmer, if you feel so strongly about officially recognizing Palestine for statehood, why are you waiting for President Trump to leave the country? Why can't you just do it right now? And isn't there a risk in rewarding Hamas with that?
Well, let me be really clear about Hamas. They're a terrorist organisation who can have no part in any future governance in Palestine. And what happened on October the 7th was the worst attack since the Holocaust. We have extended family in Israel. I understand firsthand the psychological impact that had across Israel. So I know exactly where I stand in relation to Hamas. Hamas, of course, don't want a two-state solution. They don't want peace. They don't want a ceasefire. So I'm very clear where I stand on Hamas. Okay. On the question of recognition, I made my position clear at the end of July as to the timing, which has got nothing to do with this state visit, and I've discussed it with the President, as you would expect amongst two leaders who respect each other and like each other and want to bring about a better solution in the best way that we can. Thank you so much. Can I go back then to Robert at ITV?
Robert Person, ITV.
Mr. President, you uniquely, you alone in the whole world, have the power to persuade Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop the demolition of Gaza City, to stop the starvation of Palestine, and to stop the killing of civilians. If not now, when will you exercise that power and tell him to stop?
Sure.
And then for both of you...
But you do understand about October 7th.
Of course,
you do understand.
So believe me, I understand.
One of the worst days in the history of humanity. What happened, I have seen the tapes. Babies that are 4 months old and just chopped up to pieces. And you've seen the tapes and I've seen the tapes. You're a professional and so am I. And people forget about October 7th. I can't forget about it. So I want it to end, but I want the hostages back. I don't want the hostages used as human shields, which is what Hamas is threatening to do.
But as soon as they're back, that's the moment you will tell Netanyahu
well,
to stop.
It would certainly help, but I have to have the hostages back. And I don't want them back piecemeal, as I said before. I want them back.
And on a separate issue, free speech, your Vice President, Vance, said that free speech is under attack in the UK. Do you agree with him? And Prime Minister, we saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you know, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, on the question of Charlie Kirk, can I just express how shocking that is, I think, to everybody who believes in free speech and in democracy. It sent shockwaves through the world. And I know that he was a friend of the President, and I reached out straight away to the President because I understood how impactful it would be on him and his family. And we all need to be absolutely clear about that. Whatever our political views, it is shocking and is to be condemned. On free speech, not much to add to the answer I gave earlier. This country's had free speech for a very, very long time. It is part of who we are as a country, and it is the values that we fought for. We fought for it during the Second World War alongside each other. So we need no reminding of the importance of free speech in this country. Thank you, Robert. And I go to Beth for the final question, please. Beth.
Thank you so much.
Sky.
Thank you, Beth Rigby, Sky News. Thank you, Prime Minister. If I could start with you. Prime Minister, President Trump has said he's ready to impose major sanctions on Russia if NATO countries stop purchasing Russian oil. He's got a point, hasn't he? Is that what you now believe is needed to bring Putin properly to the table? And what's your message to the President on US sanctions? And, Mr. President, if I may, the King praised your personal commitment last night to finding solutions to the world's most intractable conflicts. You have invested much of your time and effort in Ukraine, but even as you seek to broker a deal, President Putin is escalating the war. He's firing drones into NATO airspace. You say he has let you down. Was it a mistake to invite him to Alaska? Do you regret it?
No.
And is it time to squeeze him, sir, and scare him and impose sanctions? And finally, if I may, the elephant in the room, Lord Mandelson, he is no longer the ambassador. Do you have some sympathy with him that he lost his job over historic links to Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you very much, sir.
I don't know him, actually. I had heard that, and I think maybe the Prime Minister would be better speaking of that. That was a choice that he made, and I don't know. What is your answer to that?
Well, I mean, it's very straightforward. Some information came to light last week which wasn't available when he was appointed, and I made a decision about it, and that's very clear. On the question of the pressure on Putin and on Russia, which is obviously really important, look, I think it is a challenge to Europe. There are a number of European countries which are too reliant on energy from Russia. The UK actually obviously has almost got nothing at all, but we do need to bear down and work with our European counterparts here. There are one or two countries, I think, that do need to look again at the question of energy. There's no one silver bullet here. We do have to have a wider suite of sanctions, which we've put in place a number of times, working across Europe and with the United States. And, of course, we must, and we are, making sure that Ukraine is in the strongest position now, because one of my long concerns here has been that whilst we talk about a ceasefire, and we all want a ceasefire, and we talk about what might happen after a ceasefire, we mustn't forget that Ukraine needs our support now. And we've said we stand with Ukraine from the start to the finish, and that means we must continue to supply them with what they need in order to fight this war, which, of course, resulted from and is a result of Russian aggression. We have particularly done the sort of leadership role in the coalition of the willing, so that if there is a ceasefire and if there is a deal, and I do hope there is, that is then lasting and not then broken, because given previous history, I don't trust Putin. Thank you.
Very simply, if the price of oil comes down, Putin's going to drop out. He's going to have no choice. He's going to drop out of that war. And when I found out that the European nations were buying oil from Russia, and as you know, I'm very close to India. I'm very close to the Prime Minister of India. I spoke to him the other day, wished him a happy birthday. We have a very good relationship. He put out a beautiful statement, too. We have, but I said, you know, I sanctioned them. China is paying a very large tariff right now to the United States, but I'm willing to do other things, but not when the people that I'm fighting for are buying oil from Russia. If the oil price comes down, very simply, Russia will settle. And the oil price is way down. You know, we got it way down. We're drilling and we produce more oil than anybody else in the world. We're doing a lot. But I was disappointed to see that. And the Prime Minister was disappointed to see that. And it wasn't him. It was other countries. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't. That's not playing fair with the United States. And we can't have that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There it is. That concludes the press conference at Chequers. It started a little later than expected, and it went on a little longer than expected. But all of the analysis is on its way. Everything you heard from all of that. Peter Cardwell is on drive this afternoon. I'm pretty sure we're going to give this one a mention.
I would say it would be talked about to some degree. Certainly we've got the top team ready with analysis of all of it. I thought it was really interesting when he said Putin had let him down. That was the furthest I think he's gone in regard to that. He also talked about Jimmy Kimmel, the late night chat show host, who's been dropped because of criticism of Charlie Kirk, saying he was fired because of lack of talent.
Yeah, that was an extraordinary one.
Classic Trump, sort of devastating in his critique.
Absolutely, just straight in there, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
And the Kimmel thing does surprise me a bit. Did you know that they're, you know, on Kimmel's normal slot on tonight or tomorrow night?
Tonight, yeah.
On Friday night, they're replacing that with a tribute to Charlie Kirk.
That's right, to Charlie Kirk. Very, very interesting.
So they've, you know, kind of overstated the apology.
Well, I wonder what Charlie
Kirk, deliberately.
I wonder what Charlie Kirk would have made of it as well. I mean, he was about free speech. His whole catchphrase was "Prove me wrong." His whole
I think Charlie Kirk would have been fine with Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, I think so too. But anyway, Donald Trump isn't, and certainly we're seeing quite a number of American networks moving in interesting directions. The whole debate about free speech, both in the United States and in the UK, is one, of course, we talk about a lot here at the Home of Free Speech.
Yeah, indeed. All of that's coming up. Interesting that Trump, later today, tomorrow, will fly back to the United States. How much of this, in your experience of covering politics, Peter, and working within it, how much, I mean, the percentage, the pie chart of pomp and ceremony versus meaningful, game-changing policy decisions?
Well, most of it's been worked out before any visit takes place. The kind of discussions are often not that meaningful. They said they had a one-to-one for about an hour. There will have been other people in the room. At the same time, the Palestinian issue, recognition of a Palestinian state, that's something they disagree with, but one another about. But at the same time, you know, that position of the UK is very clear. The position of the United States is very clear on that, whether it'll actually make a difference at the General Assembly, for example, if that happens. That recognition. I mean, 147 states in the world already recognise the Palestinian state, so 4 more. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference, and not worth falling out over. It will be the catch